Well, hello everyone, and welcome in. Welcome in to our program tonight. We've got Eric. Well, he's a former Jehovah's Witness, and he's from Rhode Island, but he's down there in Tennessee, and he's got a program called Red Pilled by the Watchtower. My goodness, Eric got a lot to talk about tonight, and we're looking so forward to him coming on. So, Eric, on there with us. Hello, Eric.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Oh, we can hear you loud and clear, Eric. You're right on the ball, as we say, and we're looking forward to your program tonight. So, Eric, what's on the agenda? What will you be speaking about tonight?
Well, first, we're going to talk a little bit about the governing body update, get into that a little bit. And then we're going to talk about, after that, kind of the main story of all the things you can't do from Watchtower. Now, I only came up with about 50-something of them, but there's way more than that. But I didn't want to bore everybody, but just to show how much of a ridiculous list it is, and some of the points I thought touched me that I would talk about, maybe ask the audience if they wanted to add any or something that touched them too.
Well, sounds good to me. So, Eric, what I'm going to do is I'm going to step out of the scene here, bring you on, and do your program. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Eric.
Yes, thank you. Well, hello everyone. How you all doing? We're here tonight, Saturday night, and we've had great programs, haven't we? Great show with Barbara Anderson, Rick, and Joe and Fran, and even the caller. I can't remember his name, but the man who was studying. Really good program here. But first thing I was gonna talk about was the governing body update. Is his name? I don't know if you pronounce it Gage Flegel. Sounds like Smeagol, like Gollum. But anyways, I digress. He says, and I quote, Spain approved a historic adjustment to their tax exemption. It confirms that Jehovah's Witnesses are well-known and respected religion in Spain. And then my question to that is, what about Norway? All these people can ever do is focus on the positivity, doesn't it seem like? That's what I got out of that. Don't tell the rank and file that there are serious problems in other countries like Sweden and Norway and Japan. And if I'm forgetting any, forgive me off the top of my head. But they won't tell them that. They won't tell them that they're being rejected as a religion. If you're not a religion, then what are you? You're a false religion. I mean, that's what is popping up and what's happening. There's some serious damage control happening with Watchtower right now, and we see that with what Rick was talking about today with them deleting videos and stuff. One major thing that I saw was they were focusing on the governing body update of the conventions and how important they are. Now, we all know it's kind of a money grab, and for whatever reasons, we'll just let the money part of it go. But they said that they are spiritually protected at their conventions, and what they did, and if I can get my Bible here, because it's not that I knew my Bible enough so that they were full of bullshit, pardon my French, but they were saying that in Isaiah 4, chapter 4, verses 5, that it is evident that Jehovah is, protecting them spiritually through conventions. And let's look that up real quick. I got my bookmark here. Now, this isn't the New World Translation. This is the New King James Version. And Isaiah 4:5 says, Then the Lord will create above every dwelling place of Mount Zion and above her assemblies a cloud and smoke by day and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For over all the glory there will be a covering. Now, the only reason why I'm not going to read the New World Translation is they changed two words. Instead of Lord, it's Jehovah. And they changed assembly to convention. Now, I looked up the definitions, and I won't read them. You guys can do that for yourself if you want to, but they're basically very similar. There is slight differences, but it's very similar and it's passable. But the way I saw it, it was very sneaky. What they're doing here is everybody hears convention, and what they the Jehovah's Witnesses associate that as the conventions, and it's in the Bible. And that's sneaky for them to do that. See, they didn't do it just to make it easier to understand. They did it for their indoctrination, is my opinion, you know. But it raised a red flag, and that's why I looked it up while I was watching that video. And let's see here. One other thing they talked about, too, in the governing body update was they justified cutting out our food at the conventions, and they showed a progression of how it started off with hot plates, and then they had, I think, 7-day conventions back in the day. I think I remember my parents telling me about that. And then we got, you know, all the way tugged down to where we have to wake up extra early before we go to the convention, wherever that far trip may be, and make our own food. Just another expense or another labor that we have to do. But they were saying that at the end of it, he says how encouraging it is that we got rid of all that, because now we can be with our friends and encourage each other. And then he says, we encourage you to eat a light lunch so we can stay awake at the afternoon's sessions. Wow. You know, they're even are they telling us how to eat now? Is that how bad it is? I mean, the rules are just getting ridiculous. But before I get to the next topic, I thought I'd open it up to the audience if they had anything they wanted to say or add to that. Well, anyways, I'll keep going on to our main story.
Hello, Eric?
Yeah.
Hi. You just made me see something that I never thought of before. It has to do with the light lunch. You know, I never caught that before where they said light lunch. They are telling us what to eat. Can you imagine that? I mean, not even you wouldn't probably, how would you eat a heavy lunch anyway, unless you went out for lunch? But just the idea, what do they want you to eat? Grapes and apples and not have any kind of carbohydrates? I don't know. People sometimes get tired after they eat lunch, but that's what coffee's for. And you wish they would have coffee available, you know?
Right. Well, it's funny that you talk about coffee and about the light lunch point. Where we were in, let's see, we lived in Providence, Rhode Island, but we went to Natick, Massachusetts. And my wife, Desiree, made a good point to me the other day, how the lines at because where we were staying, it was one of the UMass centers, and I can't remember. I just said the name of the part of Massachusetts, I think. But anyways, there was a Dunkin' Donuts like directly across from the stadium that we were at. I mean, like literally, like you just walk right across the walkway. It's there, not even crossing the street. And there'd always be a line at like the halfway point of everybody getting coffee. I mean, let's face it, it's boring and we all need caffeine to keep going. But it made me think of that, Susan.
But that's really not fair, not to even have coffee, even for free. I mean,
you got judged a little bit when you were in line, like, oh, he's one of them or she's one of them.
Well, but the thing is, how are you going to get coffee from a Dunkin' Donuts for thousands of people?
Right.
Really. It's not even kind. So how are you going to bring coffee in thermoses for, 12 hours a day? It's a lot to ask. And especially if you're in a hotel room, how are you going to supply any kind of, you'd have to be able to find a store nearby to pick up supplies for lunch. It's really a hardship. It's much more of a hardship than you would think. And then when you get to the hotel, of course, they don't want you cooking in the rooms or, really having a lot of food in the rooms. So it's kind of a catch-22. What are you going to do?
Yeah, you basically have to do cold meals, right? Cold cuts or some kind of tuna fish salads or something like that,
But what if there's not a store around the area for you to get food? And then
I guess what they're wanting us to do is get the ice, right? That's another expense, the coolers.
Right.
and go through the motions and do everything at home, and then bring. That's what we did as a family, but it's that much of a burden. I mean, we could do that stuff and go to the Cape Cod, say like, or go to the New Hampshire or Vermont because we lived in New England, and instead we're wasting our time listening to these bozos telling us what to do with our lives.
Yeah, and they don't. And those that are coming in from New York or the speakers, they don't have to worry about lunch. They'll probably provide for them, and it's probably catered. So it's just not fair to the brothers. I was in Chicago at the time, and we came from home. We didn't have to stay in a hotel, so it was easier for me because I just went to my local grocery store and loaded up, and just planned what I was going to be making. And so I don't think the brothers realize how much of a problem. And then can you imagine these places like in foreign countries where they don't have the amenities that we have here? How are they going to get food?
That's a good point, Susan. That's a really good point. Say in South America or Africa, like
Right.
how are they don't have the technology and the money, the capital that we have. Really good point.
Or the stores, or the refrigeration.
Yeah, or the stores. They got to grow everything themselves, and they have limited.
And that might be a smaller amount of population of Jehovah's Witnesses, but still, that's a big burden. But can you imagine if the people of the assembly had to make meals and provide them at a reasonable cost for the brothers that were coming to the assembly? So who's a big problem for an assembly?
I agree, Susan. Thank you so much. What a good point. I think you really hit the nail on the head there.
Well, you opened my eyes to a couple things too. So,
hello.
Hi. Someone trying to speak up?
Hi, Eric. It's Fran. We just.
Hi, Fran. How you doing?
Good. Joe's here too. We're just
Hi, Joe.
listening in.
Hello, Eric.
And Joe and I were just talking about this the other day as far as conventions go. We used to get in an argument every time there was a convention. We could never get through a whole convention without having some kind of upset. And looking back on it, it was just because of all the stress and everything of conventions, sitting there, bringing the food, bringing the kids, getting a motel. It was just so much stress. Our lives are so much happier. We get along with each other. We went on that month-long trip, and we had so much fun together as a couple. So it just shows you, once you're out of that organization, how much your life improves. Our marriage improved, our emotional health improved, everything.
Isn't that beautiful, Fran and Joe? That's so awesome. Because everything improves when you leave it. The only thing that hinders is the rules that your current family members are still following. But other than that, you have, like what you were talking about, you have freedom, and that's so important. It's so important. It really is. The conventions were draining. You know what? Desiree and I didn't have a family, but when you were talking about it, I don't remember how many children you have. Is it 3 or 4?
4. No, we have 4.
4
2 boys and girls. Yep.
4.
And they were all close. They were all.
We don't have children, and it was a lot of work for Desiree because she did the food preparation and stuff for me, and it was a lot of work on her. And that's just 2 people. Never mind, a family of 6. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of investing on a weekend that you could be with your family and wherever you want a vacation. For me and my family, it would be Vermont.
And the problem is it's so unrewarding. Mm-hmm. It's not as if, you do all that effort and boy, this was great. We'll do that anytime. It's unrewarding. Like you said, it's draining.
It is. And I don't know if you were if either of you were one of those people, but I was falling asleep at the assembly.
Oh, you
I can't, and you get judged for it, but like at some point I would get angry if someone nudged me or tried to wake me up. It's like, no, I want to just sleep. I'm tired.
That's true. Absolutely.
And when something is not stimulating you enough, when your BS meter goes off and you say, you know what, some things just, because one of the most discouraging conventions for me was the overlapping generation prophecy, and I asked my mother and my grandfather, what does this mean? And no one could answer me, and none of them thought any lesser of me for asking. They just couldn't answer.
Yeah.
I was still a PME then, but I had or maybe PIMQ is what they call it now. But I had questions. I was like, what? I don't understand any of what they just said. Like none of it.
Yeah.
And I did try to understand what they said. And I think that a lot of people could agree with me that the 607 BCE, once you found out that was full of baloney, it hurts,
Yes, it does. When you just feel like you've been lied to, and it's a terrible thing when a person feels that they've been lied to.
Yeah, for sure, Fran.
Well, we're enjoying your program, Eric, so just wanted to say hi.
Thank you so much for calling in. Love you all.
Love you too.
All right, it's always good to have Fran and Joe on. Does anybody else want to talk up before I move on?
Yeah, this is Dan.
Oh, hey, Dan. How you doing, my brother?
Hey, doing good. Hey, I just wanted to bring out that coffee thing kind of hit me because, I've visited a lot of churches, and it's kind of just a wonderful thing to have a coffee pot there in the entrance and fill up a cup and talk to some people, go to their book room and even carry it into the service. It's such a nice gesture, especially in the morning. And I was thinking, boy, that would be a practical thing. That seemed like wisdom would be on the part of having a coffee maker there for all the helpers, the people that go in early, but what I realized, I was just sitting here thinking about it, and I thought, it's got to be about money. I mean, think about this. All they have to do is rent a building now. There's no sandwiches. There's no preparation. Really, put up a tent, tell the people to listen to every word, eat as little as you can, like you said, and we're short at the end. We need a little more. There's no responsibility anymore. They've got their janitors. They've got the people to take down things. They've got the volunteers in place. So really, it's just a building. And so what a con game. My God. Coffee, I just think, man, that would be a huge benefit. Like you said, to keep people awake. It's hard to sit there for hours and hours and hours. And now tell people to get a short lunch. Have you heard have they cut back the lunchtime, or is that still the same? Do they give an hour and a half or 2 hours? Do you know anything about that?
I don't know anything about that. No, I don't. I'm not connected enough.
Yeah. So what's weird is practical would say coffee, but money would say no coffee, no pots, and nobody to man them. Because if you get caught,
you were judged at the convention because most of the people getting coffee was around, maybe an hour after lunchtime, somewhere around there. Boom, the line was lined up. Everybody's tired. And you know what? Light lunches, I don't know. I'm from New England. My parents, my father, he was in charge of the lunches, basically. He'd get up really early. He's a 5 o'clock wake up morning type of guy, even 4:20. That pot reference, but not meaning to. But he gets up early. And we'd have conch salad, snail salad, because New England, different kinds of breads and I don't know, all kinds of food. Maybe some cold pasta left over, or who knows.
Yeah.
But we ate very well. My family particularly.
Yeah, I went in and made those sandwiches, and but with all of that. But
they're telling us, can you believe it, Dan? They're telling us how to eat now. We recommend you have a light lunch. Well, what if I want to have lunch?
I'm with you.
What if I skip breakfast and I'm starving?
That's right. I'm with Susan. I'm with you. They're getting more controlling. And that's what these people do. I mean, once they got you under mind control, I've never heard of them ask for money before. I never heard, you know, Tony Morris said, I wish they were all dead. I mean, this is, the Bible says bad men would advance to bad worse. They don't have the Holy Spirit. They don't have the love of God in them. And, you know, like earlier when we were talking with this guy, it was like Jehovah's Witnesses are all mind. They're all, this is what the Bible says. Well, Jesus moved them into the heart. You know, Jesus said, I don't care if he's one of us. Go put a Band-Aid on him. Go heal him up. Go give him a place to rest tonight. Don't ask him if he's a Jehovah's Witness or he's a Christian. Go over and give him some food. So that's the mind of Christ. And so you can attack people all day and say, well, you know, you volunteered when you came in. You said you were going to be a witness and you knew the rules and you knew this and you knew you'd be disfellowshipped and you knew. See, that's all mine. That's all Jesus operated from the heart. And so that's really why I got out, because I saw the cold-hearted nature. And like you say, to tell somebody how much they can eat, that's insanity. That's insanity. There's some pretty big boys in the witnesses. You know, I'm a big boy, and I'm not going to go out and eat a half a peanut butter sandwich. I'm going to go out and get a Reuben somewhere and some fries.
Right.
I mean, I'm honest. I'm going to go to the Hogan,
210 pounds. Yeah, I want a big meal too.
I'm going to eat for 30 minutes.
Lunch is important because I barely eat breakfast, you know, like maybe it's a snack or something. So lunch actually is an important part of my meal. So don't friggin' tell me how to eat.
Yeah, people got sugar. They got to eat periodically.
Yeah, everybody's got different. Yeah, for sure. That's a good point. Yep.
But, you know, I just, in the final thought, they'll take as much control as you give them. And I really think they're pushing it. They're pushing it with everything. You know, the baby thing Stephen Led said, Tony Morris, I wish they were dead. I mean, asking for money, begging for money. The whole thing is money, 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 money. You know, you're going to get a better place. And Jehovah's thing with money, but Jehovah don't care. I mean, they're double talking, triple talking, walking backwards, walking sideways, making it up as they go. And that's what they do. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's one big Ponzi scheme. And the carrot is the new world tomorrow. And that was the same carrot that the worldwide people used. It was actually called, imagine, the world tomorrow. What about this world? What about the gift? God said this is a gift. Life is a gift. It's not a prison place, and the only way out is Jehovah's Witnesses and passing out their channel literature. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
next will be eating Happy Meals.
Go ahead, brother.
What did you say, Daniel?
I said next they'll be telling us we have to go to McDonald's and get Happy Meals.
That's right, Daniel. Yeah. The child menu. You know, you need to order off the child menu. It's getting so, I've never heard it. I've never heard it this crazy. I couldn't believe it. This show has opened up my eyes to the level of psychopaths that these guys are. I mean, the amount of control they're wielding over these people. And I always said, and I always believed, while they've got them under mind control, before this thing disintegrates, they're going to shake them for every penny they have. They're going to turn them upside down. They're going to hold them by the ankles, and they're going to shake them until every penny comes out of their pocket, until they own their family's estates, you know, motorhomes, whatever they can get their hands on, right? But it's amazing from when we were in there, guys. It's not the same organization. We never passed around a pot. I never gave them hardly any money ever. I mean, I paid for my literature, but it's not the same organization. It's totally different, and it's, you know, they're reinventing themselves, and you guys know this story.
What is
Dan?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, you know, Dan, once, and I'm probably a broken record, but once on your channel, you called the governing body psychopaths, and I commented, this might have been years ago, and I commented to you under Ricky Bobby and said, well, I don't know if they're psychopaths as much as they are sociopaths, you know, looking at the definitions. But then as time went on, I'm like, okay, never mind. And I even left a comment on one of your videos that said I was wrong. And I don't know if you ever got it, but I was,
but I don't even know the
psychopaths. They're psychopaths. Well, a sociopath doesn't feel pain, or no, not pain. Doesn't feel emotion towards what they do to others. Like there's no emotional, like Tony Soprano, that character in The Sopranos, if anybody's seen it, he's a sociopath. You know, people in the mafia are usually sociopaths, but psychopaths are people who get off on it. And I think they really do. When he blew the match out, I mean, he got off on it. He was looking forward to people dying. I mean, they all are. And Samuel Hurd, the same thing. He was like, our first assignment is to fight. They're bloodthirsty. These are psychopaths.
Yes, and in my defense...
So I was wrong, Dan.
No, but in my defense, I've got a third-grade education, and I don't know the difference between either word. You know, I make them up as they sound good to me. I said, this guy sounds...
Well, it worked out. It worked out for you.
All right. Go ahead, Daniel. I'm sorry. Go ahead, guys.
I was just thinking how scary it actually is that people may not realize that if the governing body or the watchtower could get away with it, and they could say, go and direct the congregation, the members, to kill your family members that are apostates or to kill somebody else as an apostate, it would not put it, I would not be surprised if the watchtower could get away with it. They would imprint their members that it would be okay if you murdered one of your own family members because they've left Jehovah, they're an apostate. It's just, that's how scary this actually is, because through their imprinting, the way they brainwash, I'm actually surprised that members don't, because they're so, some of these members have lost their damn minds. I'm surprised they don't act out more in a violent way sometimes, you know, because I know how my parents talked to me and how my mom has talked to me, and it was just like, in Jehovah's eyes, I'm dead. You know, at times she had just no, it's like no feeling whatsoever. It's just like, I raised you to serve Jehovah and you betrayed him. And it's like it's hard to say that about your own mom, but it's like they view you as you're either demon possessed or you're running with the demons. You know, it's wacky wild.
Could I make a
like
comment?
You're worse than a murderer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was someone trying to speak up?
Could I make a comment on that? That one hit me hard. I want to tell you something about that. They already believe murder is okay. I've heard enough assemblies where there was genocide after genocide after genocide. How many times do you got to hear genocide? And this is a serious thing for me. How many times do you got to hear genocide? Jehovah killed them all. Jehovah killed them all. Jehovah allowed them all to be killed. I mean, they're already programming them. All they got to say is the word. And don't tell me, because somebody told me years ago, if governing body told you to wear brown, would you wear brown? And I laughed at the lady in her face. I said, of course I wouldn't. She said, you wouldn't? If the governing body told you to wear brown? And I went home and I said, you know what? I'd wear brown. And you know what? There's been plenty of killing in there. I remember the guy who was having sex with one of those Moabite women, and they came in and pierced him through. And the lady said, Jehovah's will be done. And it was her own son. And so I'm like, Daniel, man, this is no joking matter. All they got to do is turn the switch. And those people, they're already under mind control. They're already following for no apparent reason. There's no reason to follow them. Every bit of logic says, Ponzi scheme, you've been scammed, they've taken all your money, all your time, and you know, and they just keep coming up with a new Ponzi scheme. And so the witnesses, you know, are more or less like gamblers. But the point of it is, Daniel's right. They're at a dangerous point. I'm not going to say anymore because I'm sorry, guys, but that got me what Daniel said, that they could flip that switch anytime. They've heard it over and over. And like Daniel said, we're worthless. We're dead to them. We're throwaways. We're junk. A mother turns off her heart to their own children, hard as nails. Why wouldn't they? It's already been done, guys.
Think about this. Go back to the Old Testament where God was using, he had his own human soldiers and they would go in, and then people that were worshiping false gods, they would go in and destroy their altars and whatever. And then they were at war. They had swords. They were fighting and killing people. How do you not think the Watchtower couldn't manipulate that scripture to compare that to apostates?
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? It's the Watchtower does it over and over again. Like you said, Dan, it is crazy to actually think how we were so dumbed down and programmed to even think that, oh, we were lucky enough, say you were born in. We were lucky enough to be born in the right religion, and everybody else is worshiping the devil. You know, we were taught to look and judge, and that's the part that hurt my soul, hurt my heart.
Spiritual heritage, isn't that what they called it, Daniel?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah,
you're
right.
You receive spiritual heritage. Like, I got that, and I felt like it was a curse. But go ahead.
I think it's sad, and I'm happy that us that are on the call are out, and anybody listening realizes they're not alone. Because that's the biggest thing coming out of the Watchtower, coming on a call like this, is when you get to hear other people and you realize, oh, damn, they went through far worse than I ever went through, you know, but it's the fact that you realize you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You didn't lose your mind. You actually just woke up and found your mind. Or maybe you got out of the mind and got into your heart. And so now you're waking up. And that's the most beautiful thing, how we can help people. But yeah, the Watchtower is lost. I don't even know how to even put it, but they're playing a very dangerous game of people could just snap at any moment because of that type of brainwashing.
Really good point. You know, it's almost like what you're to go along with what you're saying, Daniel, is that the same old charade that they do. It's over. You know, there's nothing left to it. I think Rick says the circus is over. The monkeys died, or something like that. You know, but it's true. It really is over for them. And kind of like they're a sinking ship. Every decision they make is a bad decision. Kind of like Bud Light. I don't want to get too political, but like, yeah, you know, this company decided to do something really stupid to hurt their image. And then they tried to fix it and made it even worse. And that's like almost what Watchtower is doing in front of our eyes when they're on damage control. They're just constantly trying to fix things with the government, with the XJWs, with everything, but they're not truly trying to fix the root of the problem. They're just putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound.
Yeah, and you know something else too? You can only have a gun to your head so long. I knew a lady, she was my mentor, and she had gotten her voice. She wasn't a weak person. She was very strong, and she helped me to be that way. And she told me her husband always came in. He was a drunk. And he came in and he's like, I'm going to kill myself if you don't do this and that. And he had her under control for a lot of years. She went to Al-Anon, learned how to get her voice, how to set boundaries. And the guy came in one day and he says, I'm going to kill myself. And she grabbed that gun and cocked it and gave it to him and said, do it. And I think that's what's happening to a lot of the witnesses. They're saying, you've been threatening us. You've been death threatening us for how many years? Those people are under a death threat. They're not worshiping God in spirit and truth. They're not walking with God. They haven't fallen in love with Jehovah. Not all of them. I'm just saying. But they've got a gun to their head. And the other thing is, I'm going to say this. They have been in that Old Testament, and they have been talking genocide from the time I was in there. And I started in there in 59. They have been talking genocide, you know, over and over and over in there. And that's all the stories. I can remember the last assembly that I went to, and they all died. Jehovah told them not to go into the city, and they did, and they didn't come back. And then they bring it to modern day. We never want to drift from, you know, how much of that can you really, you know, before either they tell you to turn on us or you say, I can't have this gun to my head. And that's what I did. I just said, I can't have this gun to my head Jehovah, if you're so angry, take me out of here now. If you're really this mad, God, I can't do it anymore. I can't live up to this. I can't look over my shoulder. Take me out of here right now. And he didn't. And I found out there was all kinds of wonderful people out here, and angels and people, and beautiful people, and loving people, and generous people. And oh my God, when I left that belief system and that infrastructure that Watchtower built in me, because I was tuned in, because I was indoctrinated, because I let them put the words together, set up the tapestry, they built their temple in me. But when that temple collapsed, which was my belief systems, and there was no infrastructure, and it dropped, we're born again. We're born into greater understanding, and we see a bigger picture. And I'm like, wow, just outside of my belief systems was a million new realities, millions, and I got to choose. And I was like, wow.
A million new realities, a million new friendships, a million new outlooks at everything in life, Dan. Don't you agree? Your world has opened up, you know.
I'm going to be honest. I was in heaven on earth. I really was. I had mentors, women mentors, whatever the reason. I think God put me with women mentors because I had to break that mentality about women that the witnesses put on us, that witnesses had to sit off to the side, the women, they couldn't get on the regular platform. Witnesses had to cover their head.
I'll admit, it made me a little misogynistic too in the beginning years of my life. You know, it's all I knew. That's what they teach you.
And guess what? I had women were teaching me, and they were no bullshit women. They said, you want to work with me, Dan? I said,
they knew the Bible.
Yeah, and they go, you got to eat shit. And I go, what's that mean? Well, I'm going to tell you some things you probably want. That's what she told me. You got to eat shit. I'm like, what does that mean? She says, well, you'll see when you work with me long enough. And they were tough women. But you know what? I learned from them. They were great with money. Some of them managed all the money in the household. And, Angela does that with us. I mean, it's like, let people be good at what they're good at. But, man, my whole world, I said, look at this world. I looked out, I cried. And I said, oh, my God, look at this. Look at all this beauty, all this. I said, where was I at? I was in an altered reality. And witnesses set up an altered reality. And it's men between you and God. And one of my greatest healing moments was when I was in this thing called an inner child journey, where they had me remember kind of who I was as a little boy and walked me back through some of my traumas. But my biggest healing moment was when they said, what did the Watchtower organization looks like? It was 300 people. And I was in a small group. And they said, what did Watchtower look like when you were a kid? And I said, well, you go over there and you be Jehovah. And the guy made like a statue of Jehovah. And I said, and be pissed off. And then I said, have two brothers in front of them, one reading the Bible and one reading the Watchtower. So they had two guys in front of Jehovah. And then they said, where was your family? And we were in the back row because we were the dirty ones. We were the ones who came in with our hair messed up. We didn't even have a suit. My dad would pick us up off the baseball field and say, you got to go to the meeting, boy, get in the car. And we'd sit in the back. And my parents stunk. They were big. They were really big. And we were embarrassed. And we were the ones they talked, they were trying to encourage and all this stuff until I got a little older. But why was I bringing that up? Anyway, I forgot my point. But, this inner child journey.
Where don't you get judged from any little thing, in our lives? Yeah. I mean, they're always constantly judging us, Dan, over everything, I mean, there's some things that then they don't judge you, depending on the social structure of the elders in your current or local kingdom hall, I should say. It depends. It's a good old boys club, and it depends what flies there or what doesn't.
Yep. So here was my healing. So I had this thing set up with this two guys up there read the Watchtower and Awake, Jehovah pissed off behind them. And then my family sat in this row. So I set up the people in a row, and I said, well, my dad was here because he cracked us in the head with his finger. My brother sat here, and my mother sat here. And I started bawling for an hour, and there was a facilitator there. And she's like, are you okay? And I said, this is sickening. And she said, what? And I said, why is Jehovah mad at me? And I said, and who are these creeps up on the stage telling me he's mad at me? And why are all these people between me and Jehovah? What is going on? And that was the end of religiosity for me. That was the end. And that was a healing that was like, God isn't mad at me. He makes the sun come up on the righteous and on. He feeds us. He waters us. We breathe his air. He beats my heart. You know, he's not mad at me. And I was like, again, transformation. My eyes popped open. I was like, oh my God. And I healed in that moment. But anyway, I'm talking too much, guys. But I appreciate you letting me share tonight. Thank you.
I always like hearing you and Angela talk, and thanks for coming on, Dan. And you know, I know some people had a problem with you, or that person had a problem with you earlier. But if I can just be honest with myself a little bit, like I crashed a Jehovah's Witness cart one time, and we were talking for a long time, and I wasn't telling them that I was the next Jehovah's Witness. I was kind of being facetious, if that's the word.
Yeah, I've done it too.
And then I eventually told them at the end, and because they were being so obstinate, kind of, or arrogant, you know, like about the shunning arrangement, I dropped some F-bombs, and then they packed up their cart and left, and I left. Listen, it's hard not to get passionate, everyone that's listening. I mean, if it wasn't for this show being Christian-based, I curse in my life. I do, like a sailor sometimes. I don't view it as abusive speech unless, depending on my intention of using the words, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of times, like everybody that hits a hammer, how are you not going to say, fuck, you know? I'm sorry. Everyone.
Right.
But sometimes things happen, and we get, these are sensitive subjects that are coming up. I mean, I lost my whole family. Your mom and dad died, and you guys didn't end in a good way. I mean, this is hurting a lot of people, and it's not okay. This is not cool.
Well, here's the thing. Here's why I got upset. I don't like people who abuse people. And when the guy came on, he was setting everybody up. People were wasting their time telling him, hey, we love you. Thanks for coming in and all this stuff. And then they would tell him, hey, you know, they would tell him a story about someone who got disfellowshipped. And he was being totally off, you know, well, how do you know they weren't murdered? Oh, you weren't disfellowshipped. Oh, you were gay. Oh, you're not a Christian. And I was like, wait a minute. This guy, you know, this guy's a witness or whatever. But it was like, no, I'm not going to let him drop one more person. I heard somebody tell them their story from their heart, and he basically dropped them. He said, well, you know, when you sign up for this, well, you know, you're kind of signing up for God, right? If you come,
he doesn't know that there's a secret elders book. He doesn't know there's a secret elders book called the Shepherd Flock of God or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
We don't know the rules in that book. We don't. If we all read that book, would we have gotten baptized? Probably not.
Right. Well, how about this? 4 years studying, and he don't know Jehovah sent his son to earth. I guess someone sent him to earth, and I'm like, come on. So he was so ridiculous. All I did was spank his ass, and I was glad I did, because I don't like people being abused, and I felt like some of the people on there were being abused. So I don't let a narcissist push me over. When I've got something to say, I'll say it, and then let me finish making my point, and then you can come on and you can tell me whatever. But he was trying to drop me like he did those other guys, and he was using legalism. He was just using witness terminology. It'd be like talking to my brother. Well, Danny, you know, you signed up for the organization, and you know Jehovah's rules. And
my family says the same thing. I know, and I didn't.
I
didn't know. Yes, someone else
this is Sharon in North Carolina.
From North Carolina. Hi.
How you guys doing tonight?
Good. What you got to say?
Great.
Well, what I got to say about that guy, David, I think he's still in the middle of love bombing.
Yeah.
That's what I got out of it. Okay. And I wanted to say something about the convention when I was little.
Yeah.
When they had the 7-day at Yankee Stadium, we used to go into the city because I'm from Long Island. And we used to stay with my grandfather. He was never with
my family went.
Yeah, right. The 7 days in the heat, remember?
They were from Rhode Island, but they went to it.
Okay. Now, my grandfather would drive us so we wouldn't have to take the subway. And every day before my mother got in the car, he would say to us, all those people in there, your brothers and sisters. And we'd be, yeah, Papa, they're all brothers and sisters. And every day for those 7 days, he would give us something to do. He said, okay, today, ask them all for $1. We never got $1. The second day, it would be 75 cents. And it would go all the way down
until the last day, the 7th day. Okay, just ask them for a penny. We never got anything. And we were so brainwashed as kids, it didn't make sense to us why Papa was telling us to ask these people, our brothers and sisters, for money. And then as I got older, and it didn't even hit me until I left in 2012, what my grandfather was trying to teach me. They're not your brothers and sisters. They really are strangers. Because your brother or sister would have given you $1, would have gave you the 50 cents, would have given you a dime to make a phone call, because it was a dime when I was a kid. And, you know, when you wake up, and even though I was 56 when I woke up, all those memories come back to you. And you're like, wow, what a jerk I was. Why couldn't I see what Papa was trying to tell me? And it's like, even today, okay, it's like their words, even though they weren't JWs, they were so wise. And they didn't have school education. They were just from the old country, and they had common sense. And if you put their common sense to what the witnesses are doing, it's like totally 2 different mountains you're standing on, if you know what I mean. It's just crazy. And here, my grandparents, we were told that they were satanic, they were demonic, because they didn't go to the meetings, and yet they would have given you their shirt off their back.
There you go.
They were regular people that worked all their lives. My grandmother was a seamstress. My grandfather worked on the railroad. And they gave more. They even gave to witnesses. And it didn't even dawn on them that they were witnesses. You know, this person needed it, so let me give it to them. Or my grandfather would go put up a cabinet for them, kitchen cabinet. Oh, they need help, let me go over. Never asked for a dime. But yet they were demonized because they didn't go to meetings. And that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Sharon. What a good point.
You're welcome.
Really, no, it really is. It really, you see how Watchtower just, they don't make us better people. I always think of bad associations spoil useful habits. And it feels like that's what they're doing. They're spoiling, good habits from people, you know, like some of my family members and people we know. I've watched, you know, I used to think that there were some good elders out there, because there was. I knew a couple. One of them took me under his wing, and he even though I was doing LDC or RDC work, I think at the time, I was disfellowshipped and got reinstated, and you go through the punishment mode where you can't have privileges. I say that with quotation fingers. And he took me under his wing, and he said, give him privileges back, because I need him to spray cabinets, because he knew I did auto body. I was a painter with auto body cars. And if you can do that, you can definitely do furniture. I've learned pretty easy transition. But anyways, I digress. He taught me something, and he was a nice brother. We worked together alone one time to get a job done, spraying doors, and we had a nice Italian meal, because I told him I can't go anymore without eating. We went like maybe 8 to 10 hours without eating. And he goes, okay. And he took me out. We went to an Italian restaurant down the road and had a bottle of wine, and ate a really good meal. He paid, and we went back to work and finished the job. So there were good brothers, but now it just feels like everything that's the governing body are just tainting all these good habits that people had. And it was a point that I was going to make. And if there's anybody that wanted to say something.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. Eric?
Sure.
I'm really enjoying your program. I just had a couple of thoughts. One on the assembly. This is Dick Borgie.
From Dick. How you doing, Dick Borgie?
Doing good.
Good to talk to you. Yeah, what do you have to say?
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. One is that I used to go to the same assembly that Rick used to go to in Natick, Massachusetts. And they used to have these little tables, and they were so low to the ground, and they were so hard. There was no cushion, anything on there. And, you know, I'm 6'3" and 220. And then, I just didn't fit into these little round chairs, little round seats. And, my kids were little at that age, maybe 7 or 8, and they were the same level as me. It was very uncomfortable. One of the things that I always remembered about it, you had to buy all these coupons. You never know how much things were going to cost. And then when the assembly was over, you say, well, 6 months from now, I'll use these coupons that I haven't used. No, you can't do that. I remember getting a phone call from the presiding overseer. They actually were watching me and other servants and elders that we were going to a steakhouse because my boys were young and they were, rambunctious, and that they had to get out of that assembly hall for a while. And we'd take them out to a steakhouse and bring them back. And I remember one time my youngest was real small. We started driving back, and when I pulled into the parking lot of the assembly hall, he started crying. He thought it was all over, that we could go home and he could play. And, it's tough on these kids to sit here for 8 hours. They don't do that at school. They only put them in there for 5 hours. And even younger, first graders, probably less hours. So it was really tough on the kids. I thought Dan brought out a really good point. He's always right on target about...
for sure, Dick.
Yeah, well, he's right on it. These people, they're going to talk to you about Jericho, and God's people went in there and they killed everybody. The walls came tumbling down. You know the story. They went and they killed everybody. Man, woman, child, cat, dog, everything that was alive, they killed. Okay? But they'll tell you Jehovah's people today don't go to war. They don't go in the military. Doesn't make any sense at all. They're just, matter of fact, I had a talk number 4, this way back when, and they skipped over a part in the book of Luke about Jesus telling Peter to trade his coat for a sword. Jesus is telling his apostle to do this. A sword like the M16 of today, it's a very cardinal weapon. There's so many contradictions in this. The one thing that really struck me that Dan was talking about,
even a stone was mentioned a lot in the Bible too, which kind of can drop out the no gun policy, because stones were used at least 2 or 3 times in the Bible for murder, and like David and Goliath and Stephen being stoned to death, probably more than that. And are you going to ban stones? I know it's a side point, but I digress.
No, but it's a good point. It's a good point, because if you look at John 8, his a lot of stuff that the Watchtower was taken out of the Bible. It's a very famous story. This woman, she's an adulterer. She was going to be, as you allude to, stoned. And Jesus, intervened for her and said, he who's, has no sin, cast the first stone. Everybody knows that. And in the Jehovah's Witness Bible in the 50s and 60s, that's in there. Verse 8, chapter 8, verse 1, and you can read it. And in later Bibles, they took it, they put it in the footnotes. Now, if you get the new Jehovah's Witness Bible, it's not even there at all, not in the footnotes. It starts chapter 8, verse 11. They just completely did away with it. And the book of Revelations tells you you're cursed if you change one word of the Bible. So they are a cursed organization. But I just wanted to, on Dan's point again, they're already messing with people's minds. And they're letting people know in the Watchtower, they said, if the government's allowed, then the witnesses could kill another Jehovah's Witness if the governments would allow it, because Jehovah would permit it. If someone was disfellowshipped, they could be stoned to death. I guess that's probably how they would do it.
Adultery was one of them.
Yeah, sure.
I think they would do it. Is that's what you're getting at? I think they would do it today if the government allowed them to.
I think that.
I mean, when he blew out that match you know, and had that look in his eye and smiled, you know, Dick, I think that they wouldn't mind killing at all. The silence.
Can I throw something out there?
Yes, sir. I'm going to let this brother give his comment, and then I'm going to move on to another subject because I'm not quite sure how much time I have left. But go ahead. Why don't you finish up these thoughts? Yes, sir.
Cut it there. Go ahead.
Years ago, I'm not disfellowshipped anymore, but years ago when I was disfellowshipped,
you reinstated?
Yeah, I got reinstated and just faded out.
Okay, good for you.
So basically, I was with the three elders, and it was during the time of the prodigal son was starting to come out in the talks, and then I think they had it in a Watchtower about the prodigal son quite some years ago. And I thought, oh my God, this is because I was still disfellowshipped at that time. So I thought, oh, this is Joe is bringing new light. You know, this is the elders are going to change their views and blah blah blah, whatever. And so I got called in by the elders, thinking I was going to get reinstated, and then it was farthest from the truth. But one of the elders spoke up and says, "Do you realize that how grateful you should be right now that you are not, well, how did you say it? That we're not back in the Old Testament, because you would have been stoned to death." And I thought to myself, how in the hell is this supposed to be encouraging? You know, I'm making all the meetings, I'm doing everything I'm told to do, and
who gets to judge that? You?
It was crazy. It was just these elders I dealt with. There was only a couple of them. One tried to defend me and say, "Wait a minute, brothers," because one elder told me that Christ's ransom sacrifice didn't apply to me, and another elder spoke up and says, "Wait a minute, guys, we're going a little bit too far," and they both attacked him right there in front of me. It would turn into a big old fight, and then they excused me from the room. And then when I came back in, the other brother just remained silent, and basically let me know I wasn't going to be reinstated. What happened is there were three other people disfellowshipped in the hall. No, I was the third one. There was two other people disfellowshipped in the hall. One of them had been there. I was approaching 2.5 years of not being reinstated. Another one had been there longer than me. I saw him hurting. He was there with his wife and his daughters. I saw he was not doing well. And so I waited after the meeting. He went out to the car while his wife and daughters visited, you know, after the meeting. And I went out to the car with him, and I tapped on his window, and I said, "You doing okay, brother?" And he was kind of reluctant at first, but he knew I was disfellowshipped too, and he just broke down. Well, somebody saw me in the parking lot when they came out of the Kingdom Hall, and they went back in and told one of the elders that was on my committee that I was talking to another disfellowship person. That's why they called me in for the meeting. And who do you think you are talking to another disfellowship person? You think you guys can all go hang out together? I mean, it was crazy, but all I was doing, I was going for my heart. I felt for him. I felt like he looked like he was ill. Like he's just had it. He couldn't take it no more, you know? And I felt bad. I thought if I could encourage him in some way, that's what it was all about. Man, they kept me out another 6 months because of that. I was considered.
You were doing the rules of Christ, obeying those rather than the rules of men from the governing body, or say elders. And you got punished.
Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. So,
you know, it's a good point. It's like how I really see it is that you were on you are on the narrow and cramped road because you did what was hard to do what was right. You know, and that's what it really is. These witnesses think that the narrow road is where we get all this persecution from being witnesses. No, it's not. It's not that. You're persecuting others and you're getting backlash for it. But thank you, brother, for your comment. Really well said.
If I got a little bit more time, I'm going to go on to the next subject, and then I'll invite anybody else to call in. I'm going to talk about, let's see here. I'm going to name off about 50 some odd things that you can't do with Watchtower, and I'll talk about some of them, and maybe y'all can add to anything I missed. And I know I missed a lot. I have thought of things that I have missed. I didn't want the list to go on and on and on. But I'll start with what you can't do, and one of them is no facial hair. You can't even have a shadow, because I got counseled for that, doing microphone attendance. I shaved in the morning and had a shadow at night. You can only have a mustache, and where I was from in Rhode Island, if you were black, you could have a soul patch, that little thing underneath the lip. But a friend of mine who was mixed black and white, they said, no, you're not black, and he tried to have the soul patch, and they wouldn't let that. But anyways, I thought I'd add that in. No long hair, no dyed hair if it's green, blue, something crazy like that. Not crazy, but something crazy to them. No ripped jeans, no piercings other than sister's ears, no tattoos, no mohawks, no faux hawks, no swearing. Let's see, no saying God bless, no skirts above the knee, no cleavage, no rated R movies, no porn, no paintball, no laser tag, no birthdays, no holidays, no Girl Scout cookies, no charms, those little bracelet things. Remember those? Somebody told me about them. No working at a military base. I actually knew a friend of mine, his father couldn't get baptized because he was a mailman at a military base. How ridiculous, right? But for the best, because his life went in a better place not being a Jehovah's Witness. No working as a police officer, no over drinking, no marijuana, no drugs, no, but only pharmaceuticals, even if they're really bad, like, I don't know, Percocets or something like, I don't know, something just unhealthy for you, like Prozac. I don't mean to call pills out, but whatever doesn't affect people very well. No dating unless you want to get married. No sex before marriage. No touching with the opposite sex. No smoking. At one point there was no piñatas, but I think they changed that. No rap music. No heavy metal music. No magic. No Ouija boards. No clapping for a person that like gives a talk, unless you're the first time that you gave a talk, or a governing body member. No, what else is it? No clapping for a reinstated person. No YMCA. No churches, just kingdom halls. No guns. No blood. No blood transfusions. And at one time, no blood fractions, but they changed that. You can't say good luck. No chewing gum at the meetings. No school sports. No prom. No class president. No getting involved in union strikes. No chewing tobacco. Saluting the flag. No college. No working any jobs that take from Watchtower. No costume parties, and no worldly relationships or being with this fellowship people. Long list, huh? Whew. Are you guys sick of me saying it? But isn't it ridiculous when you say it out loud? And one of the things that I wanted to bring out, and I'll leave it up to the audience if they have anything to say after this, but having no worldly relationships hurts, because my father had a close relationship with a guy that not that he worked with, but he was a friend of the family of the company that he worked with or worked at. And he would come by and pick up concrete because he did form work. Like he would do forms and and my father worked at a concrete place. He knew every part of that job. And they had a close relationship, and we called him Cousin Mike, even though he was worldly, and I say that with quotation fingers. But the Cousin Mike wanted to get close to my family and I, and my dad wouldn't do it because we were Jehovah's Witnesses, and he explained to him why. But the guy would offer his cabin in Vermont, we lived in Rhode Island, to us as much as almost we wanted to use. And I felt like down the road when I woke up and became an adult, I felt how shitty. This is so crappy. This is so crappy that we're using these people up. They wanted to have a relationship with us, but we're better than them. But we'll use you up, and like go to your cabin without you when you're not there and take that up. And I that really bothered me. There's a lot of rules to Watchtower that makes good people lose the goodness in them almost, you know. And that was one specific no-no that I don't agree with. And he was a really good man, and I think we could have had a really good relationship, probably good for all of our families together. They had, I think, 3 kids, and my parents have 2. But anyways, I'll open up to the audience. Is there a rule that I'm missing that touches your heart, or one that I talked about that that maybe struck a nerve? Hello? Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yeah. Yes, this is Eric. Who's this?
Yeah, Dick Williams there.
Oh, hey, Dick.
Yeah, they have a rule, kind of unwritten rule. If you order a new car from the factory, it better be a 4-door car or you're going to be in trouble.
Yep. I forgot about that one. See, I'm glad I didn't try as many as I did. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Hello?
You're absolutely right. Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you good.
Back in the 70s, an elder gave a talk at my hall, and he said that we shouldn't say devil food cake because that sounds kind of like satanic. So we had to say chocolate cake. And he said also we shouldn't say devil's eggs, you know. And
no way, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Our hall was so strict. We couldn't do anything at that hall. They were just
what part of the country or where was that? I'm assuming it's America, but where in the world was that?
Los Angeles, California.
LA, huh? Wow. Some strict elders there.
So strict. And you know, and then they said, one brother gave a talk and he said the sisters that wear jeans, they were glorifying lesbianism.
What kind of jeans?
Like just regular jeans.
Just regular jeans. Why? Because they should be in a dress?
Yeah. Because they were glorifying lesbians.
My goodness. Hey, I make a dish called shrimp fra diablo, and the diablo means devil because it's hot, it's spicy, and it's a Portuguese dish. So am I pagan because I like shrimp fra diablo? Good point, sister.
Yeah, you're going to kick out of this. Jeffrey Jackson, governing body member, drives a Demon, and it only has 2 doors. Woo! Disfellowship him.
Well, what car is that, Dick?
It's a Demon. It's by Dodge. The Dodge Demon.
Is that a 300 series or?
I don't know. Well, it's a Dodge Demon, and they also have a car called the Hellcat. But
the Hellcat, I know. Yeah. Okay.
The Demon, I think it's 800 horse, 820 horse.
It's like really okay. It's almost like a Hennessy package for Camaro or something like that.
Exactly. It's a dragster.
Okay. Yep. Gotcha. And he's got one of them. You know that?
I know that for a fact, and it's a 2-door.
but we all can't have it, even if it's a pickup truck. Good point, sister, and good point, Dick, too. Well, what a long list of things we can't do, and it's like the reason why I brought it up is if you become awake at all in your life, taking that red pill, you know, when you say that, wow, I only said 51 things. I know there's more, and y'all have already spoke about a few of them. It's endless. It's endless of how much control they want over us. Every little thing. I think the Pharisees of old that were in Jesus' time would be like, damn, I could never do what you guys could do. I mean, what they get away with.
No studying the Bible alone. No, without the Watchtower publications. That's a huge one to me that always tripped me up, because you're using uninspired literature to supposedly study the inspired Word of God.
Yeah, good point. When you say it out loud, right, you lose your mind almost. Good research for sure. It's like a song that's out there, and I don't know who sings it, but they say if you talk enough sense, you lose your mind. The quick little verse, but it's true. When we dissect these guys, when I listen to JW.org, it's just like, my goodness, these guys. I mean, how was I a part of it? How are we all a part of it? You know, at one point, how did we all fall for it? I know a lot of it was child indoctrination, but it's also just manipulation. I personally think. Is there anyone out there? I don't want to hog. We all don't want to hog the conversation. Is there anyone out there that wanted to make a point that hasn't talked?
Hi, Eric.
Yeah.
Hi, dear. This is Constance. I'm just really enjoying your show tonight. I was going to say one thing that. Hi, dear. One thing I was going to say is, you know, in high school there was a junior prom. There's the senior ball. You know, witnesses really missed out on all of that. They, as you know, can't be in any football teams, tennis teams, any of that. And what's really so sad about that is that's just all part of growing up, just being, you know, a kid or a teenager and learning social skills. It amazes me. I was not born in a JW. I was a convert as a teenager. But you know, you listen to.
So you could compare, right?
Oh, big time.
Like the difference, yeah.
Oh, big time. And then you know, you listen to people who are maybe were in for 40, 50 years or whatever, and they're out now. And then it's like, you know, I have absolutely no friends because I don't have any social skills because I never really learned that. And Watchtower, I think, intentionally does that to handicapped people. They really, really do. And I think that's very, very sad. But, you know, the Pharisees had like 613 rules and regulations. Somebody came up with... How many? 613.
613, wow. I'm sure we could find more, probably more than that from Watchtower these days. I did just a quick little ramble.
Well, somebody came up with, say, within the last year on the show that Watchtower... And I don't know who it was, Eric, but they said Watchtower had over 1,700 rules and regulations.
I'm sure. Yeah. At one point, Tony Morris used to talk about tight pants all the time. But at one point, I was born in '81, so I was raised in the '90s as a teenager, and my mother would not let me have baggy pants because that was the style. So I was forced to wear tight pants, and I got made fun of in school for it. And so now Tony Morris is saying it's okay to have baggy pants. You know, he guys like literally got beat up because of their policies. And I'm sure a lot of other people out there too. Just to be a Jehovah's Witness brings bullying in school, you know, and it's sad because it's not. It is on the bully. They shouldn't be doing it, but it's also on the witnesses. We shouldn't be so. You shouldn't be having kids telling other kids what to do with themselves and leaving literature. I think I heard of a kid one time leaving a pamphlet and the mother threw it away, you know, and said it was trash or poison. Because it is what it is.
Well, you know, Eric, even with regards to relationships, you know, look at so many of the witnesses, you know, by the time they're like, you know, 21, 22, especially the sisters, if they're not married, my goodness, they think they're old maids. And they don't even, you know, it could be a sister, it could be a brother. They don't have the social skills, and they're very inept at being prepared for marriage and having successful marriages because they live in such a bubble. They don't have the social skills that are needed for happy marriages. A lot of them fail. It's really sad. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, hon. Appreciate your comment. Does anybody else got anything to say?
Yeah, just a real quick one. I can remember one time one of the elders came up to me and said, Brother Boogie, you really shouldn't be wearing a pink shirt. So I told him, I said, I'm very secure in my masculinity. And he didn't like it at all. And I was told by somebody else that if I'm ever wearing that pink shirt again, I can't open or close a meeting with prayer.
Oh, goodness. I mean, I can't believe it, but I'm in shock.
Some
gay. Yeah, I'm not trying to trigger anybody out there. I'm just like, that's their mentality.
Hey.
Oh,
did you say you have mustaches anymore in the Watchtower?
No, they still do mustaches, is what I was saying in it. That they do no facial hair except mustaches. Oh yeah, go ahead, Brad.
I remember when I was a young teenager, there was a guy in our congregation that I remember asking my dad, who's always been an elder, "Wait, why isn't that guy like a ministerial servant or an elder? Because he's really knowledgeable." And he was always trying to help people out, because he always did this research. And I remember my dad it just came down to the fact that he had a mustache, and that was it. That's he's got a mustache. And I was like, so? And it's like, well, that's when it comes to why. And then you get into the questioning of like, why? Okay, boy, answer me this right now. Why can't you have facial hair? What's the deal with that? And then they can't answer it in a satisfactory manner. And that was one of the things that for some reason just really always bothered me. I can't.
Is that an Australian thing? Really. Like no mustache, because it's not a problem here.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like there's a couple of things. You were saying that you couldn't go to costume parties. I remember there being a couple
costume
of
parties is a thing. Yep.
I remember there being a couple of costume parties when I was growing up, but they were for no reason. They had to be for no, it's not for someone's birthday. It was just a costume party organized out of nowhere. Okay. And there was always somebody that came in a costume that got them in trouble, always. Like I remember one time I was actually given control of my own costume. The one time I was allowed to go, and I went as the Phantom, the comic book character.
Oh yeah.
I painted myself purple and had a gun. I got this water pistol, and because of that, I was never allowed to go to another costume party again because I took a gun.
Water pistol.
And because I had chosen, like I was going to say, one of the things that really bothered me as a kid was no comic books. One of the funnier ones was like no Smurf toys, because there was always
Smurfs
stories about Smurfs,
Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings.
Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings. Like that. Yeah. I used to get in trouble for reading Lord of the Rings, but I knew this guy that read Star Wars books. I also enjoy Star Wars books, but I remember being like, "Oi, why the hell is Star Wars okay and Lord of the Rings not?" And they're like, "Oh, because wizards aren't okay." And I was like, "But that's just space wizards.
But those space wizards.
They can just move stuff with their mind too. That's the same." Like, what the hell? And Star Wars is a genius story anyway. So I read that.
There's a guy that has a YouTube channel, and he's called Darth Magog, and he does a Star Wars spin on it. And he talks about how in his congregation the elders didn't like Star Wars. So it all depends on where you're from,
like,
and
who's
calling the shots. Go ahead.
Like, there's definitely a cultural aspect to it, because we weren't allowed flags at all. I'm not sure if you are allowed American flags in your homes or anything like that, but we never had flags.
With no salute.
We never had flags of any kind. No symbols, really. Any popular symbols we weren't allowed.
Or idols, like posters of somebody.
Idols of any kind. I come from like
a Bruce Lee poster, say, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. We weren't allowed any cultural stuff. I come from a bit of a cultural background from New Zealand, and we weren't allowed any of that stuff in the house because it's all demonized and you know.
New Zealand is demonized?
Pardon?
New Zealand is demonized?
No. The cultural stuff, the Maori stuff,
okay,
like the Aboriginal type stuff. Yeah, because they believe in a lot of similar stuff as like American Indians do, or Native Americans do.
You know, a lot of Native Americans that I personally know about, that they are actually into intuition and energy, feeling energy. And it's not voodoo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What everybody thinks.
Yeah, absolutely.
They actually live a certain diet in a certain way that connects them to the earth and to humans, and they can feed off energy and use their intuition. They have long hair, and it does act as antennas, and they can kind of feed off of people and the energy if it's positive or negative. And I don't mean to. I digress.
Yeah.
I don't mean to get too deep, but I agree,
actually,
man.
Speaking of that, it actually brings me to a point that you were talking about earlier, and that's conventions in places like Africa.
Sure.
I don't know about that, but I know about conventions in like outback Australia where they have large Aboriginal communities, and they have Jehovah's Witness Aboriginal communities out there. And basically there's a couple of families that will prepare everything while the convention is going on, and then there's one lunch that everyone gets fed, but it all comes out of the pockets of either those families or the entire congregation. It's never helped or provided by the governing body or Watchtower Society in any way. It's just always paid for by the people that are going there, or just these couple of families that spend the entire convention preparing food for everybody for the entire time, and then they miss the entire convention because, you know, they don't have the setups like we do here, where it's, you know, that they're just in like basically a wooden shack out in the middle of nowhere. So they're cooking food all day and then they don't even get rewarded with the in quotation marks spiritual food in any way, shape, or form. All they do is work all day.
Wow.
And I always thought that sounded pretty shit.
Yeah, I mean, they are good for nothing slaves. That's how they treat them.
When I actually had to go to a convention, it was like, man, I wish I was out the back making food all day instead of sitting here having to listen to this trying to stay awake. And I think they tell you to have a light lunch. I remember even when I was younger, they told us to have light lunches during conventions because when you're hungry, you stay awake. When you're fed, you're more likely to go to sleep because they have that constant way of talking that's super boring. That
yeah, you listen to Charlie Brown's teacher.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
You know what? You know what's interesting too is when you think about. I remember when I was a teenager, I couldn't have a Michael Jordan poster in my room or a Michael Jackson poster, remember, because it was considered. My parents would explain it as like it's almost like a form of idol worship or whatever, which they never got. We couldn't have a picture of Jesus, right? Okay, you can't even have a picture of Jesus in your house, right? But you got them in your publications, but you just can't put it in a frame and have it on your whatever. But check this out. When the difference between when we were kids and our kids today, the governing body was almost invisible. I mean, I never knew who exactly the governing body was as a kid. Like, I didn't know all their names and what they look like. Now they've come out of the woodwork when they went to this JW.org, and they've come out wherever. But my daughter, who's 13 now, she went to an assembly, and what's the brother, the one of the anointed that he has the crazy gestures that almost creeps you out. Yeah, Stephen Lett. Yeah. He was at their assembly, and everybody was going up, and guess what? can we get our picture taken with you? My daughter and her mom got their picture taken with him, and guess what? They have it up in their living room. So here you can't have celebrities.
Yeah,
you can't even have a picture of Christ, but you can have a picture of the governing body, and they have no problem with you taking their picture. See? Yep. That's all I wanted to say.
Great point. Great point. Was that Dick? Great point. That's exactly what they...
Dan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who was it?
Daniel.
Daniel.
Oh, Daniel. I'm so sorry.
Dan.
Oh, Dan.
No, I'm okay being with Dick Bogey, but hey.
The accent got me a little bit, and I got confused. Sorry.
Eric, that's cute. I was going to say in reference to Dan's comment, not Daniel. I'm sorry, Daniel.
Sorry, buddy.
Anyway, I was going to say, the thought I was going to say is some of the governing body members in the past, I don't know about presently, but in the past, they would have brothers and sisters come up to the podium at the end of the assembly or intermission or whatever, and they would autograph their Bibles. So, that's worshiping them. And I just wanted to say, I love that brother's accent from New Zealand. I have family from Christchurch, and it was really, really cool to hear his comment. Thank you.
Cool. Well, yeah. Thank you, everybody, for all your comments. A lot of good points I think we touched on tonight. Let's see here. One thing I was going to comment on. I was away from my show last week, and I was sick in the hospital, but I'm doing pretty good now. But I did have a story about it when I was talking to one of the EMTs there. I tell everybody everywhere I go. It's kind of like my witnessing work, if you will, or my anti-witnessing work, to tell people about Jehovah's Witnesses. And I talked to an EMT about them, the witnesses, and that they're a cult, and I was raised in it and woke up. And he said, "Oh yeah, I knew a Jehovah's Witness," and so I'm talking to him about it. And he said, one day he decided that he wasn't going to take care of anybody, like drive anybody in the ambulance that was on blood, because it was against his policies or his religious beliefs, I should say. And it eventually got back to management, and they told him, "No, you have to. You can't pick and choose. Like you have to." So he quit his job. What an extreme thing that the witnesses or the governing body are doing to the witnesses, to the rank and file. You're not going to drive somebody because of your difference of opinion when they're dying from blood loss. Are you kidding me? You can't. Of course, you can't do that. I'm glad that management basically gave him an ultimatum, and he decided to leave on his own terms. But another situation I had in the hospital was talking to a nurse that I had, and she asked me a question that was personal, but it led to Jehovah's Witnesses. And she said that she was from Nigeria and that she studied with the witnesses. And she talked about some other cults in her neighborhood, or I should say in her part of the world that she lived in. And I had no idea what she was talking about. They were in a different language. I didn't recognize it at all. But what she told me was when she studied with the witnesses, after she had studied with them for a while, she realized it was a cult too, because she had that experience with cults, And so I thought I'd bring that up to everybody here tonight. Just how the witnesses are really losing their reputation. You can't fool anybody anymore. And your tactics, your old school sales tactics from Rutherford, Judge Rutherford, he's not even a judge. He was a fill-in judge. But it's over, It's like when you're watching the end of that movie, what is it? I can't think of it. I'm trying to... Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And if you go to the very end, he comes back, he goes, "You're still here? It's over."
And that's how it is with Watchtower and their members. I mean, they're really coming to an end because the truth is coming out through this channel and through other channels. But I'm talking enough. Is there anybody that wanted to add to anything that's been said tonight?
Eric, can I just make one brief comment?
Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say, honey, that, you know, Abraham Lincoln made this one comment that's pretty apropos to everybody's listening on this show. He said, you know, sometimes you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. And what's interesting is people are really, really waking up to the trickery of Watchtower and the corruption.
Yeah, great point, hon. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to add to Connie's little ditty there. And I bring this up every 3 or 4 months. The Kingdom Hall that I helped build in 1972 was the Dracut Kingdom Hall in Dracut, Massachusetts. And me and Rick went to visit it about a year or two ago. And they sold out some denomination. They speak Spanish, some kind of. But anyway, the point is, that Kingdom Hall has a crucifix on the top of it. I just want the audience to know that Kingdom Hall was dedicated to Jehovah's name by an anointed governing body member, came from New York, came down here, gave the inaugural talk, and everyone was so thrilled. They had an anointed governing body member giving a talk at the Drake Kingdom Hall. And that Kingdom Hall that was dedicated to Jehovah has a big crucifix on it right now. That, in my opinion, would be tantamount to having temple prostitutes in the Holy of Most Holies. Just thought I'd bring it up.
Great point. Great point, Connie and Dan.
Hi, Eric. Eric?
I keep mixing you guys up. Yes, hon.
It's Sharon in North Carolina again.
Hey, Sharon.
Say, hey, Connie. Hey, Dick. I have something to say about. I just finished reading The Second Coming of the New Age, that book, and it was talking about in the 1870s. That's when all these New Age religions came out, and as I was reading it, I was so surprised to find out that the Watchtower is a New Age religion. And I never thought about that until reading that book, because of the terms that the New Age religions use, so does the Watchtower, such as, you know, saying the Holy Spirit is not a person. I was very, very surprised. I mean, just when you think you know everything that there is about Watchtower, and then you read about something, these two men were New Age and they became Christians because they saw that the New Age religion was totally satanic and demonic. And when I saw 1870 to coincide with the Darwinism, that's when all this culminated. I was like, oh my God, they're New Age too. And then as I further went on into the book, the more I read about it, the more you could see that Watchtower is definitely New Age. It is not from the first century Christians. It's not. They're New Age. And all these witnesses are so deceived, they have no idea what they're really involved in. That's all I wanted to say.
Great point, Sharon. I mean, really, they have no idea what the people are really following. And some of them do, which is the scary part. The elders, you know, or they're ignorant to just following blindly.
And not to care what their members are involved in, and think about the way they're treating their family members that leave. They talk about the world having unnatural affection and love of the greater number cooling off. They are the ones with no affection. They have none. There's no unconditional love with these people. It's Watchtower. They're like a bunch of robots. You could program a computer faster to do something than you can rewire their brains. It's just incredible. It really is. And it's so frustrating when you try to explain things to them and then you see the glazed eyes just happen, like they shut down. You must just hit the restart button to get them going again.
Agreed. That's a great point, and that's why the name of my show is Red Pilled from the Watchtower or by the Watchtower. It's because, like, when you wake up, you can't, it's so frustrating when no one else wakes up with you. It's probably one of the most frustrating things on this planet, to be honest with you. You almost feel like you're in the Matrix. You feel like you're in another world, or however you want to describe it, whatever fits with you. You feel like you're in the Twilight Zone. It feels like that. It's like, why can't everybody else that I hold dear to my life see that the same way? And I'm sure the rest of y'all feel that way too.
Hello, Eric.
Yes.
I was going to say, see, you know, once you get out of the organization and you unshackle your mind, you know, your spiritual eyes really open up, you know, all the dots start to really connect one by one. You know, I was in the, well, excuse me, I've been out of the organization for 40 years. That's what I wanted to say. So I've been out a long time. But I was going to say.
How long were you in it?
12 years.
12.
I was in. And I was a convert, which thank goodness I was not born in. But I was going to say that just happened to be my circumstances in life. But I was going to say you can see why Watchtower does not want people to do any research on the organization. Because once people start doing research, they will realize, like what my sis just said in North Carolina, Sharon. And let me tell you, she is a walking.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, she's a walking encyclopedia when it comes to research. I promise you that. So, you know, if people find out New Age, well, Oprah's all about New Age. Oprah is. And anyway, you know, our whole world is a lot of New Age. But if witnesses found out that the organization was part of New Age, you know, it would really, really wake them up. One other thing I just wanted to say briefly. Rich was talking about how, you know, the Kingdom Hall is supposed to have been dedicated and it was Jehovah's, you know, with the anointed brother from the governing body. Well, I'm originally from California. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. And Los Gatos, Saratoga area is a very beautiful area down the peninsula. It's near Silicon Valley. It's right in that vicinity off of 280 and Highway 85. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is in Los Gatos, there was a large parcel of land, and it was so large. It was on Farley Road. Farley, you can look it up. And anyway, it was such a large parcel of land. There were 3 kingdom halls. Okay. And anyway, Watchtower ended up, you know, none of us could ever go to any church or be a part of, you know, anybody's wedding and Christendom or any of that. Well, Watchtower ended up some time ago. It's been a while. You can go online to look this up. They sold that parcel of land to Muslims. And why did they do it? Because they got a big chunk of change from the Muslims. And now it's a mosque that's on Farley Road. And it had 3 kingdom halls at one time that was supposedly dedicated to Jehovah God. So the reason why I say that is this organization is not a religion. It's like Joe and Fran were saying earlier tonight. It's nothing more than a corporation that does not even have a human soul. And once you really understand it's all about profit, it's all about money at everybody's expense, then you realize how used and abused and lied to that you were with this organization. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And you're so on point with that. That's exactly what they do. And you know, they gaslight us all the time. There's so many tactics that they do that are so sneaky, like being a snake oil salesman and gaslighting us all the time and using fear-mongering tactics to control us. How sad, you know? Well, is there anybody else that wanted to say anything? Well,
hello.
Yes.
This is Calvin from Australia.
Hey, Calvin.
Calvin, main Brad of friends, actually.
I'm sorry?
I'm friends with Brad.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yep. I'm glad you're feeling okay now. It's must have been very hard for you in the hospital and all that.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yep. Okay. Just earlier, you mentioned things that we're not allowed to do in the Jehovah's Witness, and you mentioned like we're not allowed to work for anybody who takes away from the Jehovah's Witnesses. So, what did you mean by that?
Can you say that again? Ask the question again.
Yeah, you said
about Jehovah's Witnesses. I just didn't hear it entirely. Sorry.
You said that we're not allowed to work for anybody who takes away from the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, what did I mean by that? I got you. Yeah, what I meant by that was they highly discourage any job that will take too much time because you have to give to Watchtower. Does this job interfere with the meetings? I realize I was vague on that point, or maybe a lot of the points, to be fast, but it was like kind of in line with my friend who had the military job, even though he wasn't a soldier, he was just a mailman. But that's what I was getting at. In America, at least, if you had a job, say an office,
can I interrupt?
Oh, sure, go ahead, hon.
Yeah, this is your wife. I just wanted to say a good example. Hi, a good example of that. Oh, my mind lost me. I'm so sorry. My mind lost me. I forgot my point. I'll chime in later. Sorry.
Oh, you sure? Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking you were referring to people who take away, like you're not allowed to work for anybody who takes money away from the witnesses. That's what I had in mind, but you're talking about.
Oh, no, I remember. No, I was not allowed to be I wanted to work for an airline, and because it would have taken away from the meetings, I was not allowed to do that. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to travel. And there's a lot of jobs that people have to give up because, for Jehovah's Witnesses, because it's considered that it would take them away. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but that was my one example is I was never allowed to work for an airline because you have to be open. Your schedule has to be open for meetings, and that they don't schedule you normally. Like you have to be open on a Sunday morning and a Thursday night if that's your meeting time. Sorry, just saying.
That's okay. I used to be a cleaner myself a long time ago when I was pioneering, and I had to clean poker machines, and of course that wasn't allowed, was it?
Oh, what kind of machines?
Poker machines.
Oh yeah, poker. Yep.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Poker machines. Yeah.
Desiree's on point. I mean, even her father, my father-in-law, at one point told me because I don't really consider it a problem anymore, but in the Jehovah's Witness eyes, I had a problem with marijuana. And he wanted me to quit my job as an auto body painter that I had been doing, for 16 years. I was an auto body painter and invested in it with tools. And he's like, oh, it's a worldly job. There's a lot of drugs in it. I'm like, well, what job doesn't have drugs in it? And I'm not really doing drugs. Like pot is like, I actually had my medical card and everything where I was in Rhode Island. Just a side point, but yeah, I agree with you, brother. There's a lot of stupid rules that we all have to adhere to. Thank you, Desiree, too, for adding.
There was even a congregation in Victoria somewhere that if you give a talk, you're not allowed to wear a coloured shirt. You're supposed to have white shirts.
I've heard that too. I've had different color shirts in my time, and that was the 90s, 2000s. So I heard no colored socks.
yeah. I've got colored socks.
Good for you, brother.
Yeah. I thank you for answering that question.
Yeah.
Cheers. Can I say something?
Sure.
When I was growing up, I was always a bit of an artist, and I remember in high school they had an opportunity to go to a life drawing class where you would be drawing a topless model or a nude person of some description, and I wasn't allowed to do that. I remember one of my one of the kids in our congregation, he came up to me and he was like, "Oh, we're not going to be able to do that life drawing thing." And I was like, "Oh, why?" And he was like, "My parents are like, well, they might as well hire a prostitute." And I was like, oh, my parents aren't that stupid. There's no way. And then I went to ask my parents, and they said the exact same thing. My dad was like, "Oh, well, what's the difference between them hiring a stripper?" I was like, "You don't pay a stripper to draw them. You don't pay a stripper to paint them. Like, I'm pretty sure that's frowned upon if you go to a strip club, bringing an entire easel and trying to paint them. That's ridiculous." And we got into this huge fight, and it was just like, I can't believe that you're not going to let me do this. When at the time I wanted to become an artist so that I could draw for the public, I could paint the paintings that were in the publications. And there's no way you can paint realistic people without going to a life drawing class at some point. It's just not possible. So
yeah, I've seen some of your artwork, and you do a great job. You sent me a piece of it on your phone.
Oh,
once.
Thanks.
And to go along with what you're saying, Desiree does like artwork and like with charcoal specifically, and she has a picture that she did, or a painting, or whatever you call it, with charcoal, of like a backside of a woman. And there was an elder that saw it, and he didn't have a problem with it, but he told us that I shouldn't have a problem with it. But my brain tells me, the way I was raised, porn.
Yeah,
but, like,
pretty much.
He was cool with us, but like still, that is the Jehovah's Witness mentality, you know. Mm-hmm. they see something that's natural from God, basically, and they have to pervert it.
Yeah. It always reminded me of when that scripture in the Bible, when Adam and Eve started wearing clothes or covering themselves up, Jehovah was like, "Who told you were naked?"
Right.
And it always brought me back to that point. Like, that's exactly the same kind of thing that you're doing. You're making it so obvious that nudity or sex is such a apparently dangerous thing, when you don't go to strip clubs to paint people, and you don't go to life drawing classes to see naked people. It's two completely different things.
For sure, brother. It's just another thing that Watchtower wants to control us, or make bad, or something to shame us with. I mean, it's never ending. It almost feels like you can't be human within the organization. Well,
no, you can't.
Anyways.
With that many rules, you have to be a robot instead.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure, Brad.
Yeah,
what was your buddy? Oh yeah, is that Colin? Or I'm sorry if I got your name wrong. I'm trying to remember everyone's name, and I'm doing a horrible job tonight, just so everyone knows.
Hey,
go ahead,
Eric.
brother. Yeah,
Eric.
Yep.
Hello.
I don't know if it was maybe in certain areas, but was there a kind of like a rule that if you went to a JW funeral, you couldn't cry because that means you didn't believe in the resurrection?
No, I've never personally heard of that, but I don't doubt it. I don't doubt the craziness that can happen within certain elders, but I've never personally experienced that. But if I will add to it, like there was kind of a mentality, like depending on who your dad was, like my father kind of has toxic masculinity. He might call me like a name, but no, I've never heard of that personally, but not doubting it.
Yeah.
But have you personally experienced that or heard someone say something like that?
Well, I remember a sister at another congregation. There was a funeral, and she was saying that she went to the funeral, and she said that some of the sisters. She said she was crying, and she said some of the sisters came up to her afterwards and said, You must not believe in the resurrection. Why would you be crying like that?" And
wow,
she said that just hurt her so bad because the person that died was her best friend, and she was saying she got this fellowship and she left witnesses, but she said that just hurt her so bad because it was her best friend, and they was telling her that she didn't believe in the resurrection because she really cried and cried and cried at the funeral. So
were they uncomfortable with her mourning personally? Why they would do that to her? That's so harsh. What a horrible thing to do to somebody.
Yeah, because I was just wondering if that was just a isolated case or is that kind of a general thing? But then a couple
just because I never heard of it before doesn't mean anything. Because one thing I've learned from these networks of us XJWs is that there's always a story. And there's a good chance someone listening probably has heard something like that too. It just depends on the people, the elders, the characteristics of the congregation, and the way their politics. Almost for an organization that says they're not political, they seem to be. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm telling you, the elders out here in Los Angeles are crazy. Okay. They will disfellowship you if you just smile the wrong way.
Oh yeah, for sure. It always seems never ending. The amount of things that you can do wrong. I don't know. From my wife and I personally, we always felt like there was something we were doing wrong to upset somebody. Even a group of us friends went out. We went to a brewery, so yeah, we're going to drink some beers. I mean, we're at a brewery, and we went back to our house, and there was maybe a good amount of us, maybe half a dozen or a dozen, somewhere around there. I don't know. And one guy had a bottle of Hendrick's gin. We had a little booze, but I didn't get drunk, and neither did my wife. But one person there did, and she confessed to an elder and threw us under the bus and said she mixed medications and we're all drunk, and it wasn't the truth. She was because she had too much, and it's just sad with the organization. I had to get a phone call, and I squashed it with the brother, and he let it go. But it's just always something that's being driven into our lives to mess it up or to make things harder. It reminds me of the Pharisees when in the Bible, when Scripture says that they had all these rules and it was burdensome to the people. It's exactly what's going through right now, and I'm sure a lot of people could agree with me. But I just wanted to say thank you to Brad and his friend from Australia and everybody calling in. I can't think of everyone at the moment, but it's so good to hear from a strong community and from people who are all on kind of the same page. Even if we disagree on things, we can agree to disagree, and we can agree to still love each other even if we have differences. I think that's something beautiful that the Jehovah's Witnesses don't have. The moment you're not on board, goodbye. And that's not healthy because that doesn't help growth. Is someone trying to speak?
Yeah. Hey, do you guys remember a few hours ago at the Six Screens JW News? Rick Farron.
You're breaking up a little bit. Can you try to re-say your question?
Yeah.
Sorry.
And Rick Farron in the news show, there was a guy at the end called David, and he was studying with the Jehovah's Witnesses. Check this out. So he went live on his channel, and I saw that on the comment section. So I found him. He invited me on to his show, his channel, on the live. The guy really is studying with the Jehovah's Witnesses. He's the real deal. And we talked for about 2 hours.
I believe it too. He said he smoked and drank. His story all adds up to not being a witness. I don't believe he is either. There's a picture of him with a beard. Go ahead.
But I told them we had to run a test. You know, when I asked them, you know, you have to say, I love Jesus. He's my personal Lord and Savior, because, you know, it's like the cross with the vampires, you know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then, you know, it's like tell a Democrat, like say to a Democrat, Trump is the greatest president ever. He won't do it, you know, or vice versa, you know. Every group has like a vampire cross garlic thing, you know. And this guy's the real thing, and he's going to call back. But we also apologize to him and says, hey, you know, we had to put you through the test, you know. He thought we were paranoid, and we had to explain to him that no, you know, there's elders that are, and it's not like they're spying on you. What people don't understand is that in every group, religious, political, business, like if I were to take you out, I take you out of the red screens, and I get, I took you out. Red pill is no longer in the 6 screens, and I took out Apostle Babe. And why do I want to take you and Apostle Babe out? Because I want to climb the ladder. You know, that's how it is in all of these groups. So this is why a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, not that they're paranoid, it's like we've lived it. You know, we know that there's imposters in the chat. We know there's imposters everywhere. And
we're kind of paranoid too, just like the witnesses in a way, but in a different way.
In a different way. But I'm glad you felt that way. That was your gut feeling, and I.
Well, to go along with what you're saying, they do weird things. Like I've talked about on my show or Rick's show. I don't remember when I left a comment, but I had an elder stalk me because I told a sister at the doing the cart witnessing. I said hello to her, and she was shunning me. She kind of, turned her shoulder to me and wasn't talking to me. And I said, well, I was just trying to say hello. You have a great day. And hey, with everything that's going on in the news, I heard about Hamburg, Germany. You all sisters, keep safe, be safe. Don't just, it's a crazy world out there and what's going on. Just be safe. Well, I was just minding my own business, and I was in the Kroger marketplace for about 10 minutes, and an elder crept up on me out of nowhere. And I was in the store for a while. And he said, did you say something to a sister? And instead of giving him any kind of gratification or answering his questions at all, I looked at him because I really had this genuine question. I said, sir, are you stalking me? And he, instead of answering my question, he just picked up and leave. And I said, no, sir, I really would like to talk to you. I would like to keep talking to you. And he just kept going. He left his back to me and would not talk to me. They do weird things, and it's not being paranoid to say that it's very possible. They like to control situations. It's very weird. It's a very weird situation.
And it's very interesting because, one of the things he asked me at the very end was like, because he was referencing the time in the video where I think it has like close to 100,000 views, where I crashed the Kingdom Hall during the District Circuit Overseer Convention. So Circuit Overseer visit in Tucson, and I crashed it with other people. And I start yelling and screaming and everything. And he starts asking me like, is it right what I did? And I told him, from the viewpoint of on the outside, I was wrong. But I told him this. I go, listen, I was 100% wrong in everything I did when I crashed the Kingdom Hall. But if I had the chance to go back, I'd do it all over again in a heartbeat. But this is the thing about learning the truth about the truth. We can tell the truth now. I can be honest. I can say I was wrong. I can say that I was wrong, and I would do it all over again. It's kind of like that song, Late December 1963, Oh, What a Night. Yeah, it was a night of sin, and it was wrong. But if he could go back, he'd do it all over again. It's okay. We can be honest. We don't have to live in a pretend world. And I think he really liked that answer, is that, because as a Jada, we can't just tell the truth. And the truth is, I'm 100% wrong, but I do it all over again. And you can't talk like that if you're a Jehovah's Witness. Yeah. You can't be honest and just speak whatever's on your mind. And I don't, and also, I'm not trying to be right 100% of the time. And so he was happy with it. So, you know, yeah. Am I ashamed of it? Yeah. Would I do it again? Yeah. And so he was able to understand that a lot of apostates, why they do what they do. You know, yeah, you and I, and we all done things that we shouldn't have done. Yeah, yeah. But so what?
I agree, brother.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a great show. I can't wait till next week, right? Hopefully we can. Hopefully we can, you know, get some feedback from the outsiders.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, thank you, man, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, good hearing from you, brother. Thank you.
All right, talk to you soon. Bye.
All righty. Well, what a great show we've had. I don't know how much more time I have, but we'll keep going here. Isn't it interesting, folks, to see how Watchtower is falling flat in their face? I mean, we're watching it in front of our eyes. We're watching the mishandlement of CSA cases and just the family structure as a whole. And when Tony Morris said, we're certainly not going to do that to change their standards, it frustrates us, but we realize that if they don't, they're going to crumble. And if they do, they're going to crumble. You know, imagine one day an announcement saying there's new light, this fellowshipping arrangement is no longer a thing. Oops. I mean, you got a lot of angry people. I don't know if you have lawsuits at all for it, but it is blackmail. You know, that they probably realize that they can't admit that. They can't admit that the things that they've done to us. So they're just going to keep going down with the ship, so to speak. Is there someone trying to speak in the background? I hear a little noise.
What?
Go ahead, whoever's first.
Yeah, this is Dick Borghi again. I did want to take up the program. I mentioned a little earlier.
Confusing you and Dan. My apologies.
Well, I'm better looking.
I didn't say it. You got my wife and I laughing. I hear her in the background. Go ahead.
Yeah. I did mention earlier that what was I talking about?
Johnny Owens.
Oh yeah, Johnny Owens. This elder came to the door, and he rang the doorbell, and right above the doorbell is a big sign that says "No soliciting." But I invited him in, and I started talking to him, and I had my Bible right beside me. He wanted to read me a scripture. I said, "Well, wait a minute, I'll look it up in my Bible." I kind of blew him away.
That's the last days, remember?
Yeah, and then I told him I had read the Truth Book and the Paradise Earth book, and he said that he would come back. And I told Connie he'll never come back, never, 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 because once they know you have knowledge, they don't have anything to do with you. They have to prey on people that have no knowledge and are gullible.
Well, they don't want you to challenge them. You know, they walk in with this ego, thinking that they're high and mighty and they're the only ones that know the Bible. And and you know, the thing is that we've been out of the organization for a long time. It wasn't a booby trap. I mean, we were very pleasant. I offered them some coffee. You know, they stayed for about an hour and a half. And then he got in. I mean, I said to Rich, I said, "Oh my word!" I said, his spiel is the same as when it was before I came in the organization, about the last days, and you know, Matthew 24:14, and all that. You know, which I believe in. I believe in that today. I honestly do. But the thing, it's the same old spiel. Now, that was like 40 years ago. You know, I mean, you didn't even have to prepare going door to door. Just memorize it 40 years ago. You know, bring it today. And so anyway, the thing is that, you know, I'm just trying to hold back my chuckling with him. And, you know, we were very pleasant. And then Rich asked him, you know, some questions about, what was it, Yahweh? You know, God's name is really Yahweh. And he said, oh, yeah. You know, we understand that. And then I guess he wanted to, you asked him about Jehovah, the name Jehovah. How do you get the name Jehovah out of Yahweh? And I got to tell you this, Eric, this was such a kick. So, you know, I had to interject and, you know, at the right time. And I said, well, you know, we both were Catholics. We were born and raised Catholic, and you know, and then we grew out of that. You know, we left the Catholic religion, and I said, well, one thing that was very interesting. I said, well, you know, the Catholic religion, you know, they have so many pedophiles in their organization in Catholicism, you know. And the guy looked at me, the elder. It's like I was looking straight at him in his eyes, right? Because your eyes are like the window to your soul. I mean, he went totally blank. I mean, like dead, completely dead. His eyes went dead when I said that. And it was like, oh boy, I hit a nerve. And he probably was thinking, I'm just saying this now, he probably was thinking if I could have gotten inside his head, oh gosh, please don't bring up anything about our organization because we have plenty of pedophiles. Now, he didn't say that.
He probably knows being an elder, right? I mean, depending on the elder.
Exactly, Eric. I mean, his eyes went dead instantly because you can tell when you're talking to someone if they're focused and they're really paying attention and they're alert, and then all of a sudden their eyes go dead and their brain is somewhere else, right? And that's exactly what he did. And he probably thought, uh-oh. And so we didn't, you know, of course we didn't bring anything up about Watchtower and all the child sexual abuse, but he was going to come back, and there was a sister with him. It wasn't his wife, you know, which was no big deal. I'm just explaining, you know, who was there. And he never came back. He never, ever came back. So thought it was very interesting. The point I think Rich is trying to make is, yeah, they think they're high and mighty, and they think that they're the Bible scholars of the world. But God forbid you start to challenge. And it wasn't really a challenge. It was just some simple questions. And he said that he had studied the Truth Book, which we both had. And Rich didn't say that to him, but he said, I studied the Truth Book. And what was the other book?
Paradise Earth.
The Paradise Earth. So this guy thought, oh boy, these people are not stupid. You know, they know about the organization. But they were cowards. That's the point. They don't want anyone to challenge them. And really, their level of the Bible is like elementary, and their twist on the Bible with the silver sword. I don't care if it's the New World Translation. It's very tainted. It's very twisted. So thank you, Eric.
Oh, thank you, Hon. It is so twisted. What I brought out earlier when they changed the word from what was it? From assemble to convention. I mean, I know that the word is similar, but still, they're conning the people. They're manipulating them to think that the conventions are blessed. But they'll never say that you're physically protected. They'll never feed you physically. It's always spiritual. Where in the Bible does it say spiritual food? I don't know. Maybe it is in there. I don't know my Bible enough, but they're always focusing on spiritual food. And it's like when you really break it down, is Watchtower a charitable organization? I think all of us here listening or me talking can agree that they are not. Everything has, if you get help from the congregation because your roof got blown off from a tornado or from a natural disaster of some sort, they'll come, a bunch of hackers or people that don't know what they're doing will come by, work on your roof, and then they collect the insurance check, but no one gets paid but Watchtower. Yeah, that's totally charitable. What a joke. But anyways, yep. There's someone trying to say something. Yes.
Yeah. It's just Brad again. I was
hey, Brad.
Just about to say you mentioned spiritual food, but like you said earlier, at the conventions they tell you to have a light lunch, but then they're just trying to jam so-called spiritual food down your face the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Or don't eat real food.
Meanwhile, you're starving.
Don't eat real food. Yeah, you're starving, really. Just having jam down your throat.
I totally agree, brother. I mean, really. And I mean, what do we all do when we get out of there? Most of us went to some kind of restaurant if we could afford it with our friends, right? We couldn't wait to get out of there, get a big meal, and eat. And it's funny how David Splain, he gave a talk one time and said, oh, isn't it funny when when people get together after the meetings because we all feel encouraged and we go out for pizza. No, most people like myself worked so late that we ran right there, skipped dinner, and that's what we're looking forward to the most is going out to eat afterwards and get a slice of pie or whatever, man.
Yep, we're just hungry, bro.
Pretty much, brother.
Can I comment?
Sure. Always good hearing from you, Brad. Go ahead, sister.
Oh, I'm not a sister. I'm your wife.
Oh, you're a sister. Hey, honey. Yeah, I didn't recognize your voice.
I just wanted to say how ridiculous it is that they think they're feeding people spiritually, when the fact of the matter is that the real charity that other real false religions do that are considered so evil by them are actually really physically feeding the people, and they're clothing them, and they're doing all this other stuff. And Jehovah's Witnesses think that it's good enough what they're doing just by spreading scriptures. And they say that faith without works is dead. Well, you have to live the scriptures, and they're not living the scriptures with charity. They're not doing that. They preach that they have to do that, but they don't do that. And I won't get into it, but you and I have been in hard times in our life, and we've been refined by God to know what it feels like to be on the other end of it without Jehovah's Witnesses involved, to be rejected by Jehovah's Witnesses, but to also be helped by other religions that don't ask you your faith, that don't care if you believe the way they believe. They only care about your circumstances, and they only care that you're in need. And they are doing what I consider the actual Lord's work by giving of their time. The only way that Jehovah's Witnesses help is by helping each other. They don't help their fellow man. And these false religions, quote unquote false religions that they say, are actually the ones that are doing the work, that are feeding the poor, and that they're housing the poor, and that they're giving of themselves so extremely. And all that the Jehovah's Witnesses have to offer you is to try to indoctrinate you, and that's their charity.
Mm-hmm. What a great point. Really, really, Desiree. What a really good point that you made, because thank you for adding to that they really don't feed us physically in any way, or take care of us and our physical needs at all. Her and I personally had, when we were hurt, the Witnesses didn't do anything for us, but it was the churches that helped us. In fact, there was a church down the road when we were a little more destitute. They had a food bank, and what a nice minister. He would give us quite a bit of food, and it was good stuff, most of it. And he always would give a sermon about the Lord, and then I think he was a Baptist, and he would say, "Don't thank me, thank God, because this is from God." And he didn't care what denomination you were. And to go along with what Desiree was saying, that I feel like that she's right. That is the Lord's work. When you do what Jesus did, he was feeding people physically too. It wasn't just spiritual food. I mean, he had multiple miracles feeding people.
Yeah, and they didn't have to believe. They didn't have to believe that he was the Messiah to be fed by him.
True.
Yeah.
Good point. Eric and Desiree, I was going to say it was really sweet to hear your wife's voice. And I was going to say, people know of Billy Graham. Well, his son's name is Franklin Graham. And the charitable services, like your wife was saying, Eric, is called Samaritan Purse. And they help people all around the United States. It might be international as well. But when there's floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever, that's one big charitable organization here in the United States. And the other one is called Operation Blessing with the 700 Club. And they help people internationally. children that have cleft palates and they're very poor in Honduras or Africa, and you know, in some of those cultures, when those children are born with cleft palates, you know, they believe that the child should be put to death because they're such a reject, and they'll never be able to grow up and get married. So they think it's better just to really, you know, murder the child. So anyway, but then you have the doctors and nurses that come in.
Is that like a deformity in the face of some sort? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Exactly what it. Yeah.
Wow, that's so horrible.
They have these doctors and nurses, and they do it for free with Operation Blessing. The other thing, and now these are real Christians. I mean, and there's, you know, there's people don't even have the money. I mean, it's done freely. Now, I know one of my brothers lived in Wichita, Kansas, and he said, my brother Donnie said, he said that there are, let me get my thoughts together. What are they? Let's see, Amish. Were they the Amish, I'm thinking? Yeah, I think they were Amish. And anyway, he said, like if your roof was blown off because of a tornado, he said they would come knocking on your door. Now, my brother was not Amish. We were raised Catholic. And anyway, the point is that they'd come knocking on your door and they'd say, oh, you know, neighbor, I see that your roof has been destroyed. You know, we'd like to be able to repair it. We'll repair it for free. Are you okay with that? And my brother Donnie said they did that to just total strangers' homes. I mean, people were not required to be part of their community. This is what they did to show their Christian love to one another. And I had never heard that. But, you know, I guess the point I'm trying to make is I'm validating your wife's comment that, you know, when people are in real dire straits, you know, telling them about reading the Bible like what Watchtower does with the Watchtower and Awake, that's not cutting it. People need food, or they need housing, or they need medical supplies, or, you know, their whole life has just been totally devastated. You know, coming up there.
Did that with no check, no promise, no nothing, just out of the kindness of their hearts?
Whatever you said, I feel it so much. You said it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, and then one last thought I'd like to make is Rick has mentioned, and even Rich was saying that, you know, when 9/11 hit, you know, everyone knows about 9/11/01. Well, you know, Watchtower was right across, you know, the ways. I mean, I'm in California, right across the Hudson. So what did Watchtower do? You know, you would think, oh, well, if they were just so loving and kind in this wonderful Christian organization, certainly they would help the worldly people when, you know, the towers went down, right? No, what did they do? They locked their doors. They locked their doors. People were running for their lives, and that ash was coming down that ended up causing a lot of people to die from cancer. Okay, that's a fact. And Watchtower locked their doors as people were flying or fleeing their lives, trying to get on boats, and strangers were coming up, bringing their boats, trying to rescue them. Yeah, that's the kind of love Watchtower is all about.
When you say they locked their doors, do you mean like the when they were in Brooklyn, they wouldn't help anybody? They shut down.
25 Columbia Heights, honey. Yeah.
They shut them down? Yeah.
Yes,
wow. That's crazy. I didn't know that. They didn't help anybody, huh?
No, they were told, lock the doors. Don't help anybody. Shut the doors.
Ouch.
Don't let anybody in. And that was Watchtower's.
That's what Christ would do, right?
What they did during 9/11 is what they have done. It's a metaphor for who they are and what they've done with every situation through their entire existence. There's no love. It's shutting people out that don't believe like you, and it's convenient for them. And the only reason why they let you in is you're a potential convert. That's the only way that they show you the true love if you're not one of them.
That's right. The thing is, look at their fruit. Their fruit is dead. They are not a charitable organization at all. Period.
Yeah, amen to that. I mean,
so true. So true.
Rick asked the audience one time
has anyone here ever been touched, by Watchtower in the sense that have you ever received any kind of charity or help? And it doesn't count coming from an individual, from Watchtower personally, and nobody has, and nobody spoke up because nobody will, because they don't know. There are plenty of stories that personal witnesses or friends have donated to you in hard times, but that's different. As far as Watchtower being, go ahead, sister.
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, this really strikes a nerve tonight, and it's a great topic. When I grew up, my father died when I was 13. So my mom, and then I had my mom till I was 25. So I lost my parents.
Sorry, had that happen.
Thank you, honey. But I'm the baby of the family, but that's the disadvantage of growing up with older parents. But the point I'm trying to make is that half of my life I had two parents. The other half I was raised by a single mother. And the thing is that my mom was the one that started studying with the witnesses. That's how I became acquainted with them. And, the scriptures always talk about, taking care of the widows and orphans. Well, I remember my mom saying, where are the brothers in the organization, in the congregation, the elders? And she says, I'm a widow and you're half of an orphan. Well, they were nowhere to be found. They weren't. And then there was a very close sister. We were very, very close in high school. And anyway, she got married to a brother who ended up being very abusive physically. And they had 3 children, and 10 years later, and it was shocking she wasn't killed from him. I mean, he was really violent. And anyway, long story short, she left the organization. And anyway, that was amazing. That's a story in itself. But anyway, she was disfellowshipped. And anyway, she had 3 kids to take care of, right? She's a single mom. So rather than going on welfare, she brushed up on her shorthand and typing, and she passed an exam with the city and county of San Francisco, and she got into a union position, and she did very, very well for herself and her family. But as she was doing that, she needed to have someone babysit her children. Well, there was a sister who was disfellowshipped that she had been close to, named Jan. And anyway, Jan lived across the street from another sister named Maureen, who was in the organization. And my friend Lucille dropped off her kids to Jan, who was disfellowshipped, because Jan said, Lucille, I'll babysit your kids for free. Don't worry about it. And she did. Well, of course, Maureen Charles had to see Lucille drop off her kids to Jan, who's disfellowshipped. And I guess Lucille wasn't disfellowshipped at this point. Anyway, and the brother, the elder, says, well, I'm going to tell you, Lucille, I understand you're dropping your kids off at Sister Jan's house, and she's disfellowshipped. And you can't do that because she's disfellowshipped. And he says, you need to find another babysitter. And I love what Lucille said. She says, is that right? His name was Meacham. She says, I don't even think she addressed him as Brother Meacham. She says, well, let me tell you this. She says, if you can find a babysitter free of charge to watch all 3 of my kids, I will take my kids, and not have Jan watch them. Otherwise, I am taking my kids to Jan every single morning, Monday through Friday, when I have to report to work. Okay? That's it. Sure. Good for her. And the other thing I wanted to say, that elder was on a power trip, to say the least. That's a side story.
A lot of them are, unfortunately, but I feel you.
He was a little twit, he was like a little Hitler, a little, 5'2", with thinking he was 10 feet tall, So
little man syndrome. Did he drive off? No, just kidding.
little man syndrome, that's right. So anyway, she said to me, I had to go to Catholic Charities to go get some food. This is as she was, Mario was gone, and, she's trying to figure out how in the heck she's going to, and she's disfellowshipped now. And she said, I went to Catholic Charities. And I said, yeah. She said, they didn't care I wasn't Catholic. She said, they just said, well, what can we do for you? I'm a single mother. I need to support my 3 kids. She said, they gave me ham. They gave me potatoes. She said, you couldn't believe how generous they were. I said, well, honey, good for you. I said, you know, what did Watchtower do for you? Nothing at all. Mm-hmm. So that just speaks volumes. People need to know that, you know. Yeah, they might not be Jehovah's Witnesses, but you know what? They certainly know how to be charitable and help people when people are in need, because that's exactly what Jesus did.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you're spot on, because I mean, I've had strangers from a different faith help me more than Jehovah's Witnesses when I was disfellowshipped. You know, I'm not saying that they never did help me. They did. I got some help when I had a surgery done from some good people. They have the right intentions, but they're all very much deceived, I think is the best word I could use. I can't see these men, these governing bodies members, anything else but deceivers.
That they only help each other.
Well, that's it.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
That's right. If you're not in their club, forget it. And even if you are in their club, you have to be with the right clique, you know?
Exactly. That's true too. You know what? My husband found something online when he was looking at reviews from a Kingdom Hall, and there was this sweet old lady when the Jehovah's Witnesses were utilizing something from the government where they were giving out food, and that's when they were taking credit for it. But this sweet old lady came and saw that they were giving out food at a congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, and they refused to give it to her because she wasn't a Jehovah's Witness. And she was so humiliated, and she felt so stupid, and she actually wrote a review on the Kingdom Hall because of it. And I truly believe it happened. I do not believe that was not true, because that's how they act. That's who they are. They take care of each other and no one else. If you're an outsider, if you're not a potential Jehovah's Witness, you're an enemy. And if you're an ex-Jehovah's Witness, you're an enemy.
Right. Right.
Yeah, to add to Dez's comment, the woman felt like what was her words? She said she felt very like worthless, you know, like humiliated and worthless, because like she wasn't a part of the group, I guess, you know, like the in crowd or whatever, and she was just a woman who was in need of something.
And they respected giving her help.
Right.
Who that has a heart in the congregation that sees a worldly person coming up that's giving out food won't make an exception? And it just goes to show that this is the culture.
Well, one thing I'd like to say is one thing that I have done in the past. You know, I went back to college. That doesn't mean I'm better than anybody else on here, but I went back to college, and I even taught at the community college level. And I've always had a heart for people who, you know, are less fortunate. I just always have. So one thing I really enjoy doing is helping the homeless. They used to scare me, but not anymore. You know, they're broken like all of us. The thing is, what's very interesting is that, you know, as far as the homeless are concerned, they're very grateful. But the point I wanted to make is, you know, Watchtower seems to indoctrinate people thinking, oh my gosh, if you are outside of this organization, if you are worldly, you are so evil, you know, you're controlled by Satan, the devil. Let me tell you something. I've been out of this organization for 40 years, okay? I have found so many people that have been, you know, of the world, which I don't like to use that term, but you understand where I'm coming from, who were never Jehovah's Witnesses, that are very, very kind, very loving, very generous, okay? Rich and I were out, I'll just give you a little example. We were out having dinner last night at Strings, an Italian restaurant, okay? And the food's absolutely delicious. And all of a sudden, there was a couple sitting behind me. There was a gentleman sitting behind me and his wife. And anyway, I couldn't see what was going on behind me. This is just a side thought, okay? Everybody's totally strange. We're all total strangers, just having a wonderful Italian meal in our little booth. All of a sudden, Rich says to me, you need to move. You know, he didn't know what was going on in the booth behind me. And there was a couple across from us. The gentleman got up to run, literally run to the booth behind us. And I jumped up so fast, I didn't know what was going on. And I I got up, I turned around, I looked at the man. I said to the wife, "What's going on?" She says, "My husband just passed out." Well, apparently, I guess he either has some kind of neurological problem or maybe a heart problem. I certainly hope that's not the case. But either that or he choked on some food and he passed out. He just collapsed over. Oh, I couldn't see it because he was behind me in the next booth. We were back to back. And I said, "Sir, are you okay?" And he looked at his wife and he said, "Yeah." He was like in a state of confusion. He says, "Yeah." He said, "What happened?" She says, "You just passed out." And he said, "I did?" And he said, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed." I said, "Honey, don't be embarrassed." I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he was embarrassed. I said, "Don't be embarrassed, honey." I said, "That can happen to anybody. You can talk and swallow your food, and as you're talking, and you start choking." And then I looked at the wife. She was ready to, break down crying. I said, "Honey, are you okay?" And she said, "Yeah." She says, "I was so scared because he passed out." I said, "Are you okay now?" And she said, "Yeah." I guess the point I'm trying to make, we were all total strangers. We were all total strangers. We didn't even know one another. And yet we were there to help this couple and help this gentleman and his wife and, call 911, give them the Heimlich, whatever you needed to do to help this person that was, out of love. And yet Watchtower knows the people in the congregation, and yet, they hardly do anything for their own kind. I'm just telling you, people in the world, just because people are not witnesses, does not mean that they are not loving and kind and generous to one another. That's my point that I wanted to make.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point. I just wanted, before the next brother talks, just to conclude, there's a lot of love out there from the quotation fingers world. a lot of people who are willing to help out and fix a problem for you. A lot of help out there. And I don't see any help from the organization. And what a good point you made, hon. Yes, brother. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Connie was saying. Jehovah's Witnesses, the governing body, they would have you believe that if you are in a desperate way, it's probably because you drink or drug or smoke cigarettes or you're not willing to work. There's a lot of people that are in dire straits because of the economy and not because of drugs or anything else. But they would have you believe that anyone that comes knocking at your door, you should reject them because they're probably a drug addict.
Or they're worldly. Just the fact that they're worldly.
They used to pick on the bikers, the biker look, the bandana around the head and the tattoos and the goatee or whatever. Yeah, that used to be something that Jehovah's Witnesses picked on.
Well, yeah. And
there's some of the kindest people out there.
Jehovah's Witnesses think they're some of the best people alive, but they're so detached from empathy. And just like Dick was saying, that they lie to themselves by saying that they're so empathetic and loving, and they have the mark of the true Christian. But when it comes down to it, there's too many examples of how they have no empathy, they have no true love, and they discount you by your sins. We're not our sins. That's not what makes us who we are. But to Jehovah's Witnesses, that is who we are, and that's all it comes down to. Is we're only as good as our last sin or not sin.
True.
They're very delusional, very judgmental, and very delusional. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so true.
They're not happy people. They always say they're the happiest people on the earth. Oh my goodness, really? Oh, what? I don't even think they know what happiness is. I'm serious about that.
If they're so happy, why is the suicide rate 4 times higher than the general population?
Well, that's it, honey. And why are the sisters? Why are so many sisters on antidepressants and so many brothers are alcoholics? Come on, let's get real here, people.
Right.
Amen.
So many alcoholics.
And the alcoholism is out of control. It really is.
out of control. They don't even hide it.
Go ahead.
I work. I'm from Australia.
Yeah, you work at a liquor store.
Yeah, and I get Jehovah's Witnesses in all the time. I recognize them from their blood cards, and they're some of my most regular customers. It's always on. Most of the time I get, definitely. I see them either every day or I see them every. It's funny. I remember meetings being, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday or Sunday, and those are the days that I would see them the most. I would say, every couple of days. Get down on it. Juicing up before they have to sit there for 2 hours being told how horrible they are.
It's funny because Brad can't make this up. Like a guy that I know used to be an elder, and he had to resign because they told him, well, listen, you don't have to resign. One of two things has to happen. You either resign or you quit drinking. And he goes, okay, I'll resign as an elder. And he is an alcoholic, and he gets away with it. And I guess he's in the good old boys club, but he gets a pass. And I mean, like, he is the type of person that if he goes too long without a drink, he'll get the shakes, Like, I think he's got to have a beer or something around noontime. There's a joke that went around.
Creating alcoholics.
Yeah, go ahead, Desiree. You're right.
I just said Watchtower is creating alcoholics, and then they're punishing people for the damage that they're doing. It's very sad.
That's right.
What's so hard is they're told they're happy, so they're believing that lie. They're deluded into, and so I'm supposed to be happy. Why aren't I happy? Well, they take antidepressants. And I'm not against antidepressants. I'm just saying sometimes if you're under so much stress and you're told you're happy and you're not, it's a dichotomy. What do you do?
Is that Susan?
Yes, it is. Hi, Desiree.
Yeah. Hi, honey. I love you. I agree so much because it's gaslighting. They won't admit that they're part of the root of the problem, that you have depression. But they're very critical of treatments of depression sometimes.
Oh,
and
yes.
It's sad. It's so sad because these people are being damaged and they need help. And the pill isn't always going to cure what Watchtower is doing to their mind. And it's just so sad. It's just so sad.
Well, I know since I've left, I'm under so much less stress. I've never been so happy. I've had plenty of trouble, but I'm happy in that I don't have this JW stress. It's just a stress. It's always just right behind your ears, It's just nothing's ever enough. Nothing's ever good enough. You have to get dinner ready, or you have to go somewhere and do somewhere, be somewhere. You have to live up to what everyone else wants you to be, and it's just too hard. In fact, when I was just fellowship, I was almost glad. I was glad I didn't have to go through all the stress of meeting.
I just can't even imagine someone disfellowshipping you. You're so sweet.
I'll bet.
I wouldn't have the conscience. Just hearing your voice, I wouldn't have the conscience to do it.
Hello.
Anyway,
go ahead, sir.
Yeah, hello. Hi, how you doing? I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to say hello to Linda James and everyone. Are you still there, Linda?
Linda? No, this is Eric. This is Eric's show right now. I don't know what's going on with Linda, actually. I'm going a little over what I usually do, but this is Eric from Red Pill from the Watchtower. How you doing, brother? What's your name?
You're from the Watchtower. What?
No. Red Pilled from. Let me slow down. Red Pilled from the Watchtower.
Okay,
so it's like taking the red pill from the Matrix. I woke up from the Watchtower.
Oh, okay, gotcha, sir. I've seen your stuff. Yeah, I've seen your stuff. No, Rick. Yeah, Rick has talked about it. I'm sorry, if Linda James isn't on tonight, that's fine. I thought she was.
Oh,
but
she's
I
not?
hear she's not on tonight.
I don't know what's going on, actually. I thought she is coming on. I mean, she was on. She left some comments on Rick's show earlier. I just figured I was running late or something.
Eric, let me get that settled for you, okay? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go check this
Thank you, Susan.
I'll be back in a second.
No problem. But it's still good to. I'm so glad that Desiree came in and Susan and everybody, Dick and his wife and Dan and I'm forgetting names, Brad and everybody. I haven't heard from Debbie tonight, but she sent me a card and I appreciate you, Debbie, for doing that. This has been a really good experience for my wife and I, though, having a community and. When you're lost from everybody, when everybody has abandoned you, and then you realize that your family. The unfortunate part is I had to stomach the fact that my family really doesn't love me. And I mean, I know that sounds like I'm just asking for attention, but no, it's true. They really don't give a crap about me, and it's sad. And they're selfish people, and that's why. And Watchtower shaped them that way. There's only so much time a man or woman can give to something, and then I'm not making excuses for them, but it is true. At some point, can you believe that we used to go to meetings, say Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, and service on Saturday, and then all the studying for that? That's 4 days alone, never mind the studying, and never mind the informal witnessing or the extras if you went to Pioneer. I can go on.
Hey, Eric.
Yes, sir.
Hi, guys.
I wanted to touch in on what you just said about the love. That was one of the hardest things.
I recognize your voice, but who's this?
It's
I
Daniel.
recognize your voice. Okay.
It's Daniel.
I'm not going to assume anymore. Okay, Daniel.
It's the same thing. That's why I never fit in the Watchtower, because for me, when you love, you love. It is automatically unconditional. It's how you feel when you're coming from your heart. And when your parents will throw you away, your siblings, I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and they're all witnesses. And when they will throw you away on a dime because the Watchtower said this, or even if somebody say, maybe you've been disfellowship, but you happen to get reinstated like I did, and then you faded out afterwards, even you being fading out, they'll find a way supposedly not to love you anymore. And I went back and forth, and I remember I'd be the one to call my mom to check and see how she's doing. You know, even being out for as long as I've been out. And I realized I'm the one that has to make the phone call. I'm the one, if I don't make a phone call, I'll never hear from them. You know, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being the person that shows the love, but it's just sad that there is no unconditional love within the organization or within your family if they're hooks or if they've been hooked really good. And that's the hard part for me, is because being a man especially, and having that love from your heart, and your family just chooses to say screw you, you're the one who left Jehovah, so everything you go through your life it's on you because you left Jehovah. So they justify their lack of love because you knew the truth and you left it.
Hey, Daniel, and hey, Eric, this is Rick Farron at the Six Cranes. Boy, I'll tell you, got a rockin' awesome program going here tonight. I do see, I think Aposta Babe is about ready to come on. I'm not sure she's been waiting for a while or what. Somehow we had a little glitch here going on. But anyways, we're going to get her coming on here soon. Why don't you take a couple of minutes, Eric, and we can wrap this up, and we'll get your favorite apostate, Aposta Babe, coming on here shortly, okay?
Sure, Rick. Thank you. And you know what? I wanted to thank everybody that called in tonight. And I'm going to forget everybody, so I'm just going to thank everybody as a generalization. But I will. I guess I'll try to name some names. But Desiree, wife, of course, and Dick and his wife, and everybody that called in. Brad.
Good job, Rick.
Anybody that I'm missing, I'm sorry. But Joe and Fran, I appreciate everybody that I've met through this. Anybody that I've talked to and that I'm forgetting in the moment because I'm not great with names or under the pressure, I get nervous. But it's a great program that we have here. It's more than a program. When you say program, you think like brainwashing almost now these days, right? That's what basically is. You're programming your mind. But no, it's a great place to for all of us to. Even if I think the best part of it is that we all can have difference of opinions here, and it's healthy. You know, yeah, we could get into arguments at times, but isn't it healthy to have a difference of opinion so that we can all grow as human beings? If you all think the same and do the same thing, I mean, right? You're going to be the same all the time. Well, you're never going to grow. You're never going to have self growth without people putting another different perspective in your life. And I think that's really important what Rick does here. And I appreciate everybody having a different perspective, and I don't want to discourage anybody from that. And I do appreciate, was it David, the guy that called up tonight? I didn't want to dig into him at all. Like, thank you for calling. I don't believe he was a witness or an ex-witness or some witness in disguise or whatever. But I think it's cool that people are calling in and have questions, and we should just try to honor them and take care of them and guide them the best we can, you know.
Yeah.
But
good job, Eric.
But yeah, thank you.
Well, very good.
Thank you to the audience. Yeah, thank you to the audience, and thank you, Rick, for having me on tonight. It's good to be back, and I'll let you take over and. Good to hear from Pasta Babe coming up.
Yeah, very good. I wanted to say too, it's really good to hear Desiree on there. Desiree, you're doing a great job. I really mean that. People love to hear you coming on. So thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I love you so much.
Well, thank you. But I have to tell.
Does she have a good voice too? She could take over.
Well, no, she does. She has a very good voice, and she really is encouraging to listen to. Very good, Desiree. Thank you.
Thank you. We love you so much, Rick and Susan, and everybody else that's listening. Thank you so much.
All righty. Well, you guys just kind of hunker down a little bit. We're going to get Pasta Babe on, so keep waving that flag of victory. And yes, Mark.
That's right. Hey, Rick.
Yes.
How you doing? Just wanted to catch you real quick. I was hoping to catch you anyway, Rick. I was calling to say hello. To see how you're doing, and I hope you're doing very well in every good and positive way, Rick. I promised I'm going to make a little time every week to call in, and if it's just for a few minutes, say hello to you and everyone out there, and to show my support to everyone, to all the ex-JWs, and you and Susan, of course, too, and that hey, I'm on your side in every way, 100%. And believe me, Rick, you're doing a hell of a great job on your program. You're really helping people tremendously. And yes, Rick, you have helped me tremendously. And pretty much, I'd say every way, 100%. So thank you for your good help and support, Rick, always. You're doing a phenomenal job. You're really helping people. And hopefully, in the future, Rick, with your good help and support, there'll be many less suicides of ex-witnesses,
Yeah.
Let's hope that starts to go down.
Well, you're very encouraging, Mark. Now listen, your favorite apostate's coming up. Why don't you hang in and say hello to Linda? Little Linda is coming on here shortly. So why don't you hang in and stay with us and say hello to Linda? She'd love to hear from you tonight, Mark. Really.
Sure.
All right. So,
Rick, I sure will.
All right. Well, we're going to end. Thank you, Mark. We're going to end the program here, and thank you all for coming on to Red Pilled from the Watchtower. Okay, we're going to end it right here, but stay here with us because we'll be going to Pasta Babe Healing after the Watchtower, ending the broadcast here. And now we're going to switch